Chapter 421. The sudden appearance of a Yi immediately reversed the situation. When Zhang Zai saw her, he hurriedly opened his mouth to call for help. However, just as he opened his mouth, Zhou Mumu suddenly increased the output of her transcendence energy. Rings of golden light fell one after another, covering him so tightly that there was no gap. Not to mention opening his mouth to speak, even breathing became difficult. In this world, without the king pill, his internal breathing technique was also suppressed, and Zhang Zai was gradually forced into a dead end. Seeing this scene, a Yi was quite surprised. "You guys are very heavy-handed. I think the wood spirit is about to be strangled to death by you." Zhang Zai cursed in his heart, "I'm about to be strangled to death by your blood spirit. You still have the time to say such sarcastic words, are you blind?" Zhou Mumu didn't say a word. Right now, she only wanted to kill Zhang Zai as quickly as possible. As for how to explain it to a Yi later, she didn't want to think about it. Speaking of which, Wang Lu told me that people can find great pleasure in suffocation. Could it be that the two of you are now cooperating to pursue pleasure? Zhang Zai was already suffocating, so when he heard this, he almost spat out blood. Zhou Mumu's magical power was also shaken. "That bastard Wang Lu always likes to joke, but you actually, really have a mental problem." However, just as she thought of this, a Yi suddenly stopped smiling. He came over and patted Zhou Mumu on the shoulder. "I've been looking for you for a long time, and it just so happens that I have something to tell you. Let's put aside the matter of comparing notes for now." Being touched by a Ye's palm, Zhou Mumu's magical power almost collapsed. She became even more anxious. "I'm helping you, okay? Only by killing this person today can your family be safe and sound. Otherwise, with your IQ, sooner or later your family will be separated." However, a Ye's hand on her shoulder became more forceful. "Mumu, it's urgent, let's go." Zhou Mumu's shoulder shook, trying to shake a Ye's hand away. However, the next moment, a bloody light lit up in the center of her palm. Zhou Mumu's whole body quivered, and the magical power she condensed was scattered by this palm. Clang, the Vajra ring fell to the ground, and Zhang Zai's thunder war body regained its freedom. He glanced at the master and follower standing side by side, sneered, and flew away. He didn't even look back. Zhou Mumu couldn't care less about Zhang Zai. She looked at the hand on her shoulder in disbelief. You know what you're doing?" A Yi helplessly said, "Can't help it, who told you not to listen to me? I can't use force on you, so I can only use the blood talisman. I'm asking you if you know what you're doing." Zhou Mumu roared angrily. The grievance in her heart had reached its limit, and her eyes couldn't help but be filled with tears. "Do you know what you're doing?" A Yi sighed and patted her on the shoulder. "This time, I have seen everything I need to see. Fortunately, Shaman's injury is not too serious. With the help of the wood spirit, she recovered very quickly. Although part of the essence of the eternal tree had been taken away, its foundation was not damaged and could always be slowly restored. The two children had hidden themselves well at the time and were not even startled. "There's nothing I can do here. Since it's all right, there's no need to stay here," a Yi said, and then moved the spear on his shoulder. "Besides, the five spirits' power struggle is not over yet, so my home should be on the battlefield. Therefore, let's go to Golden City together." "Alas, you don't listen to me. Blood talisman is precious, don't always squander it like this, okay? When the blood talisman is used up, wouldn't I be reduced to the same level as that little girl in Grey Mountain? At that time, don't say anything about being handsome, I will definitely be ashamed to death. Please give me some face, okay?" After suffering several blows in succession, Zhou Mumu finally gave up her insistence. "Very well, suit yourself. This matter should not be delayed. I've already talked to Shaman, let's go." The two of them left the eternal tree and went straight to Golden City. They were in a hurry, as if they were fleeing from a defeated army. From their triumphant return from Golden City, they didn't even have time to rest for a night in Eternal Tree City. The two of them moved very fast, and before long, they crossed the border between Eternal Tree and Golden City. It was just as they set foot on the land of Golden City, a Ye's body suddenly swayed and he uncontrollably fell down. Zhou Mumu was taken aback and hastily reached out to hug him. However, she saw that a Ye's face was as pale as paper, without any trace of blood. "You're hurt?" Zhou Mumu hastily cast a healing spell, only to find that a Yi didn't have any internal or external injuries. It seemed like he was just too weak. What did you do?" A Yi reluctantly smiled. "It's rare to come home, so I accidentally played with Shaman too much. Play your sister." Zhou Mumu put her hand on a Ye's back and poured her magical power into his body to explore his condition. What she saw left her bewildered. What Zhou Mumu saw was an empty building, with 4 walls and rotting pillars that could collapse at any time. That was a Ye's jade mansion. Once upon a time, his jade mansion was still prosperous and magnificent. However, at this time, it seemed like it was dying, decaying everywhere, and its vitality was extinguished. In the 5 spirits' power struggle, among the 5 sovereigns, only the master of Golden City could suppress everything with absolute strength. The other few individual combat power was not outstanding. However, that was relative to the 5 spirits, which were the lead disciples of the 5 uniques. Among them, a Ye's individual combat power was far beyond that of his peers. When he used the blood-marked divine spear, he also had the power to fight the master of Golden City, but now. "What the hell is wrong with you? Don't give me an unreliable reason, I'm not as stupid as you." Seeing that Zhou Mumu was pressing him, a Yi thought about it but couldn't think of a reason to fool her. He could only wryly smile that he didn't have the adaptability of Wang Lu and then frankly tell her. "It's because of the blood mark." "Blood mark?" A Yi explained. To summon the blood spirit, in addition to the necessary catalyst, one must pay a sufficient price to condense the blood mark, and then use the power of the blood mark to control the follower. This is the rule set by the blood spirit temple. And there is only one source of the blood mark: blood sacrifice. Moreover, it must be the blood of the follower. Zhou Mumu was startled. Blood sacrifice of the follower? I've never heard of it. Because only the 5 sovereigns know this secret, and the blood mark is the only proof that the master can control the follower. Therefore, the blood spirit temple will not let you know too much. Back to the blood sacrifice. The so-called blood sacrifice of the follower is not necessarily related by blood. For example, the little girl of Grey Mountain sacrificed all of her men of sacrifice. Those men of sacrifice have followed the master of Grey Mountain for generations. For the master's word, they would not hesitate to die. However, when it came to the little girl's generation, there should have been no master and servant distinction. However, because of the 5 spirits' power struggle, she killed them all. What's even more unfortunate is that the blood mark that was obtained with such a huge sacrifice has all been wasted by her. Zhou Mumu still felt incredulous. Then what about Shaman? Did she also use the blood sacrifice of her own kin? Shaman's situation is better. As a part of the eternal tree, the sacred leaf can transfer this part of the cost to the eternal tree. Therefore, she used the blood sacrifice of the eternal tree seed, which is the reserve of the sacred leaves for the critical moment. Although it's a pity, it's better than sacrificing living people. In Flaming Valley, the king of Flaming Valley personally killed his wife and children. The so-called blood relatives are no different from pigs and dogs to him. As for the situation in Golden City, I'm not clear about it, but presumably, it should not be an exception. Finally, as for me, a Yi said with a proud smile on his face. However, an ominous premonition suddenly rose in Zhou Mumu's heart. Although Aye's reputation in Harmony River was good, his closest kin were nothing more than Xiaofan and his 2 children. Those 3 were now safe and sound, in other words. Aye said with a smile, "Mumu, you're really smart. I can't touch my wife and children, so in addition to sacrificing myself, what else can I do? Perhaps if I desperately look for them, I can find a few familiar friends, but to sacrifice friends in order to fight. That face is really ugly, I can't do it. I am the king of Harmony River, the glory of this country belongs to me alone. Therefore, when someone in this country pays for it, I will not decline. This is a handsome king. I chose to use my own life to condense the blood mark. Perhaps it's because my vitality is particularly tenacious, or perhaps it's because I'm really handsome that other people have to sacrifice their whole life to get the blood mark, but I only need to sacrifice a certain amount of my lifespan. Moreover, the power of the blood mark is a notch higher." With that, Aye let out a long sigh. A circle of blood light appeared on his body, and he suddenly gained a bit more strength. Without the support of Zhou Mumu, he stood up in high spirits. Seeing this, Zhou Mumu trembled with fear. Aye had clearly used another blood mark, but the object of blessing was no longer the spear, but the body. Sacrificing his lifespan in exchange for a moment of physical strength, in the final analysis, it was like drinking poison to quench thirst. Moreover, Zhou Mumu remembered that when Aye used the blood mark several times before, each time he used 2 blood marks, one to bless the spear and the other to bless the body. The latter was used to forcefully offset the weakened state after using the blood mark, but in this way, wouldn't it accelerate his suicide? From the moment I chose to sacrifice myself, I was doomed to die. Blood sacrifice is not a simple addition and subtraction. The blood spirit temple will eventually collect the price I pay. As a warrior, I am not afraid of death, but I really can't feel at ease with my wife and children. Especially Xiaofan. Although she is smart and intelligent, she is very weak and clingy. She has always been accompanied by someone. If no one is by her side, she can't do anything. I've been worried about what Xiaofan would do after I leave." Zhou Mumu smiled bitterly and said, "So, you idiot, you're trying every possible way to wear a green hat on your head? I'm already a dead person, don't tell me I want a living person to be a widow for me? As a qualified husband, isn't it a natural responsibility to find a suitable home for the beloved?" Fortunately, this time, it seems that Xiaofan has become a lot stronger and more mature. I no longer have any attachment, and I have no regret. Zhou Mumu found it somewhat difficult to understand. Can you really be so free and easy? Of course. Because a sentimental person is not handsome at all, and I am the most handsome. Aye confidently said, his eyes full of sincerity. Zhou Mumu finally had nothing to say. So what are you going to do now? Live in seclusion and live alone for the rest of your life? Of course not. While speaking, Aye was in high spirits, and his eyes revealed a blazing fighting intent. I'm going to fight the Master of Golden City. Now. Chapter 422. I want to fight the Master of Golden City one-on-one. What? After experiencing several violent twists and turns, Zhou Mumu's spirit had become numb. However, Aye's statement still surprised her. When it came to the Master of Golden City, Aye's face was filled with eagerness. His eyes shone and the spear in his hand danced endlessly. Actually, I wanted to do this from the beginning. Among the 5 kings of this world, the Master of Golden City has always been the leader. Legend has it that he is invincible and even omnipotent, but I have never seen it with my own eyes. As a warrior, I have never experienced the strongest skill in this world, which makes me die with everlasting regret. Previously, because I had too many concerns, I never dared to go all out. But now, I have no regrets. Zhou Mumu somewhat stiffly asked, then how are you going to fight him? Do you think he will see you? Aye said without hesitation, that's why I want to pay him a visit. From here, I will march in a straight line straight to his capital city, Misty City. I don't need to worry about not seeing him." Yi chuckled and said, "Single-handedly, a king against a king, just thinking about it makes me feel that I'm so handsome." After Yi finished enjoying himself, he looked back at the sluggish face of Zhou Mumu and somewhat embarrassedly said, "Speaking of which, I'm really sorry. Following me, a master who has long been dead, the 5 blood spirits crown, is actually doomed to not be in your hands." Zhou Mumu coldly snorted. "You also know that you're sorry?" Yi said, "So you see, since I summoned you, I have been obedient to you. Even when you hit me with the diamond ring, I have no complaints, humph." Zhou Mumu turned her head sideways, looking unhappy. But in fact, she didn't have any entanglement in her heart. As she said, when she learned that the opponents were the other 4 lead disciples of the 5 uniques, especially powerful enemies like Wang Lu and Xiaofan, she immediately gave up the idea of winning. Compared to the final result, what was more important was the process. Even if it was just a game in the immortal dreamland, she would still devote herself to it, whether happy or sad, and then work hard for her own beliefs, which was more important than anything else. Just as Zhou Mumu was about to say something, she heard Yi say, "The next battle will be my own, you don't need to follow me. You're fighting alone? You make it sound so nice." Zhou Mumu sneered. "You are my master. You will drag me down no matter what, okay? Yes, when the master dies, the servant will also disappear." However, being recalled by the Blood Spirit Hall was still better than dying on the battlefield. "Also, I'm used to being alone. If you're by my side, you might drag me down." Drag. Zhou Mumu was tongue-tied, and then she couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. She unceremoniously pulled out her diamond ring and swung it around, causing Yi to see stars. "Now, lead the way. I must let you see the power of Kunlun support before you die." One day later. Wow, this is the hometown of the Master of Golden City. What a spectacular sight. Yi looked at the majestic city in amazement. His eyes were firmly attracted by the 10,000 stone steps that reached the clouds, and he found it difficult to extricate himself. Behind him, Zhou Mumu unceremoniously scolded, "Don't be crazy. The army of Golden City is about to surround us. If you don't want to die, then move. My magical power can't last more than a few rounds." Only then did Yi suddenly realized what was going on. He retracted his gaze from the stone steps and turned around. Behind them, several groups of golden clouds rapidly approached from the horizon. They were the Golden City pursuers who were in a sorry state. At the same time, a wide and long line of blood extended from the horizon all the way to his feet. On both sides of this line of blood, countless corpses piled up like a mountain. As planned, Yi moved forward in a straight line, from the border all the way to the capital of Golden City. Along the way, he killed everything that stood in his way. Such an arrogant posture caused a strong shock in Golden City. More than 10 gold-clad legions, as well as 10 times more miscellaneous legions, went all out to encircle and suppress them, just for 2 people. And it stood to reason that under such a powerful army, even if the entire Harmony River was the enemy, it would still be easily crushed. However, with his own life as the sacrifice and the blood-marked divine spear as the weapon, Yi had reached a whole new realm, which was not something that the ordinary gold-clad legions could match. With the full power of the blood-marked divine spear, a single spear strike could scatter a golden cloud. And with the help of Zhou Mumu's Kunlun immortal method, Yi became even more elusive, which was doubly difficult to deal with. The huge military superiority of Golden City could not play its role at all. Instead, because of the large number of people, they appeared bloated and were easily toyed with. In just one day, the 2 of them broke through the layers of encirclement and killed their way to the misty capital of Golden City. The 2 of them looked back and felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. They actually did it. With just the two of them, they actually broke through the nationwide defensive line of Golden City. Of course, there were many reasons for this. For example, the main force of Golden City was still entangled with the barbarians of Flaming Valley. For example, the high-end fighting force of Golden City, Xingjing's Sect team, was nearly wiped out after the ambush in the valley. For example, Zhou Mumu's mind was unobstructed in one day, and her smooth king pill almost regained its vitality, which complemented a Yi. Another example was a Ye's use of 13 blood marks in one day, which was truly shocking. No one knew when it started. Sacrificing one's life to refine blood marks completely became a kind of overkill. According to a Ye's estimation, he could at most refine 8 or 9 blood marks before he would run out of ammunition. However, unexpectedly, the more he fought, the braver he became, and the more condensed the blood marks were not a burden at all. Perhaps my handsomeness has moved the blood spirit temple, so I'm simply spared from death. A Yi laughed and paused the spear in his hand. In a split second, blood sprayed from the tip of the spear onto his face, which made a Ye's handsome face look gloomy. And since there's no danger to my life, then I won't be polite. Master of Golden City, this is my gift for our first meeting, please kindly accept it. A Yi let out a long laugh. The blood on his face evaporated and wrapped around the spear. Then the spear flew out of his hand and, like a lightning, stabbed the supreme throne above the stone steps. The pursuers behind them were aggressive, and he and Zhou Mumu were already exhausted like oil lamps. However, in this desperate situation, a Yi still put all his mind into offense, without even the slightest consideration for his own survival. He was already a dead man, so how could he fear death? This life-risking spear directly blasted through the great protective array around the capital. With a crisp cracking sound, the spherical protective shield over the capital shattered, and in a split second, gold, silver, and jewelry fell like rain. The golden jade great array that had protected the capital for thousands of years was broken in one blow. However, the power of the blood-marked divine spear did not diminish as it continued to fly toward the throne of the city master. Inside and outside the capital, there were cries of alarm and wails. For many years, this was the first time a foreign enemy extended their tentacles to the throne. Before this, no one had ever been able to break through the defense of the gold-clad army. No one believed that this spear could really threaten the master of Golden City. However, this spear meant the dereliction of duty of the gold-clad army, which meant that the master of Golden City would have to use manpower that he did not need to use. Boom! The blood-marked divine spear exploded in mid-air, and the blood mist tumbled. The 3 golden lights flickered in the blood mist, looking battered and exhausted. However, Harmony River's spear that challenged the supreme of this world was also intercepted. An exclamation came from the gold-clad army, pure gold guards. Among the tens of thousands of gold guards, pure gold was revered. It was rumored that the master of Golden City had 12 supreme personal guards, and any one of them had the tyrannical strength of the gold-clad army. It was just that, until now, this was the first time people saw the pure gold guards in action. A trifling 3 people were able to block the blood-marked divine spear. The pure gold guards were indeed worthy of their reputation. Suddenly, the morale of Golden City was boosted. Everyone scrambled to be the first to rush forward, fearing that the credit of killing the master of Harmony River would be divided by others. However, everyone only saw a blur before the master and follower figure flashed, directly crossing the long distance, breaking through the heavy encirclement, and appearing under the stone steps of the misty capital. It turned out that the main purpose of a Ye's spear strike was to break the great protective array of the capital, creating a smooth path for Zhou Mumu to cast her spell. Good, the throne is right in front of us. A Yi excitedly roared. The tens of thousands of stone steps seemed unreachable, but how could it be compared to the distance that he crossed from the border to here? The meeting with the master of Golden City was just around the corner. However, the next moment, the clouds above them shone brightly, and more pure gold guards floated down from the clouds. 3, 4. In the shocked eyes of a Yi and Zhou Mumu, 12 pure gold guards gathered one after another, forming an insurmountable barrier. The heavy breath of the pure gold guards made it difficult for people to breathe. The tens of thousands of stone steps once again became incomparably long. A Yi somewhat helplessly reached out to retrieve the blood-marked divine spear, smiled, and asked, "Supreme, are you that afraid to fight with me? Then I'll beat you until you have nowhere to hide." A Yi roared. His spear was once again suffused with blood-red color. The precious blood mark was added to the spear, and the tip of the spear shone dazzlingly, reflecting a Ye's face that was full of vitality, just like the last ray of light. Zhou Mumu silently stood behind him. Her diamond ring shrouded the area with a radius of several miles, which also formed an indestructible barrier. Outside the barrier, thousands of soldiers and horses could not overcome it. And in the battlefield that Zhou Mumu delineated, a battle that surpassed the limit instantly entered the white-hot stage. The bright red light surged endlessly. With the support of the blood mark, a Yi was unstoppable. "Shaman, your face looks very bad, do you want to take a rest?" In the eternal tree, Zhan Zai asked with concern. Shaman smiled and shook her head. The woman's face was pale, but she persisted in her cultivation. "There are still a few problems that I haven't figured out." Zhan Zai hesitated and said, "This is not urgent, right?" "Hehe, it's you who said that time is the most precious wealth." Facing Shaman's sweet smile, Zhan Zai felt that he could not resist. He had to lower his head and turn his attention back to the spell analysis blueprint. It was an ancient secret method passed down by the eternal tree for thousands of years, which was quite difficult to analyze. The two of them racked their brains and felt exhausted. It was just that, Zhan Zai always felt that Shaman's physical energy consumption was much faster than normal. Especially in this day, Zhan Zai simply watched her go from full and moist to haggard. Could it be that her academic focus was even higher than his? Thinking that his master was actually so diligent, Zhan Zai could not help but reveal a satisfied smile. In particular, the dispute with Zhou Mumu in the tree hole not long ago made him feel that the present peaceful time was precious. Zhou Mumu, for a disciple who was taught by the old antique of Kunlun sect, this academic atmosphere is something that you can't understand, right? Zhan Zai was very pleased, but he did not notice that Shaman's breath was rapidly weakening, far beyond the normal state. Chapter 423. Speaking of which. Mumu, I suddenly remembered a sentence that Wang Lu once said. Which sentence? A person who doesn't care about face is invincible. How could you think of this sentence? Because I found out that such a peerlessly handsome person like me is actually going to be defeated in the hands of a shameless rat. Isn't this the confirmation of Wang Lu's words? Hehe, the supreme of this world, the Golden Jade King, seems like he's just a villain who wins with numbers. In Misty City, the decisive battle under the stone steps had lasted for half a day. This moths to the flame battle was far more tragic than the imagination of Golden Jade King. The 12 pure gold guards of Golden City were all out, and they were also under the supreme throne. No matter how one looked at it, the master and follower of Harmony River didn't have the slightest chance. However, half a day later, the cloud above Misty City burned like fire, the 12 pure gold guards were all injured, and the white stone steps were broken. The battlefield was incomparably tragic, but the master and follower still stood firm. Although he was already an arrow at the end of its flight, a Ye's exuberant fighting spirit was not extinguished. The spear in his hand was covered with cuts and bruises, but it was still pointed straight at the top of his head. Although it's a pity that I can't personally defeat the master of Golden City, from another point of view, I also disdain to fight against such a coward. Let alone in today's battle, you and I have driven straight into Golden City and killed our way to the supreme throne. His invincible prestige has been completely lost. To be able to tear off his face, even if I die, it's worth it. Zhou Mumu said, the behemoth that everyone feared in the past is actually strong in appearance but weak in reality. I wonder how the other three forces would react if they knew about this. After half a day of fierce battle, the two of them actually no longer had the strength to fight again. However, after all their hard work, they couldn't even see the face of the Master of Golden City, which really made them unwilling. Therefore, they used their last strength to ridicule him. However, even if they were insulted, the Master of Golden City was still indifferent, sitting upright in the clouds. Only the 12 pure gold Imperial Guards regained their composure and surrounded him. Regarding these 12 opponents who had been fighting for half a day, Yi had long been annoyed. Especially when he thought that he was likely to die in the hands of these minions, a hostility rose in his heart. Very well, the killing move that I originally prepared for the Master of Golden City will be used on you guys. As a result, another blood mist bloomed. However, compared to the beginning, the power of the blood mark had become negligible. Yi took a deep breath and barely squeezed out the second blood mark. Only then did he manage to adjust his strength back to normal. Although Yi didn't know where these blood marks came from, he knew that this kind of overdraft behavior had come to an end. This miraculous surprise attack was finally coming to an end. At the same time, the golden-clad soldiers who had sensed the danger began to clamor loudly and surround them. However, Zhou Mumu raised her hand, and the primal chaos Vajra ring flipped up and down. The space within a radius of a mile was forcibly severed by her, and no one else could approach. And after completing this action, Zhou Mumu fell down soundlessly. Her mana was exhausted, her primordial spirit was overdrawn, Kunlun's secret medicine was even more exhausted in the previous half a day of fierce battle. Now she even found it difficult to maintain her own existence. T of this, her, the sect's her, T, the hurt T her sect, master of sect, was hurt T about. T to one E to say, a chen, T of this, sect of a sect. Yi, don't let me down. Although Yi didn't look back, he felt the woman's gaze. Oh, are you kidding me? How could such a handsome man like me let a woman down? But, is it an illusion? Why do I seem to see shaman? Sure enough, there's still something I can't let go. Wiping away the trace of sourness from the corner of his eyes, Yi held the spear with both hands, roared, and charged forward. At the same time, in the eternal tree, Zhanzai finally solved the problem that had been troubling him for a long time. Well, as long as I change the order of the 5 elements, the whole array diagram will no longer have any flaw. Hey, deducing a 360-loop array diagram in half a day, I have successfully broken my own record. My primordial spirit seems to have become a bit more condensed. Sure enough, heaven rewards the diligent. After gently wiping the sweat from his forehead, Zhanzai finally had the time to look up and saw Shaman's pale face. Unknowingly, the woman had fallen asleep while leaning against the wall. No matter how slow he was, Zhanzai could still see Shaman's weakness at this time. He turned pale with fright and hastily stepped forward to put his hand on the woman's forehead. Using the internal inspection method, he saw that the once lush green jade mansion had unexpectedly turned into a withered color. What the hell are you doing? Zhanzai was shocked and angry at the same time. He quickly took out the secret medicine refined by his sect from his mustard seed bag and gave 5 or 6 of them to Shaman. These secret medicines were the gift that he could get as the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect. They were priceless and even exceeded the expected income of this immortal dreamland. However, Zhanzai didn't care so much at this time. He couldn't just watch Shaman die, and he couldn't just watch his long-planned plan fail. After taking the elixir, Shaman slowly woke up. A trace of blood appeared on her face, but the color was very unnatural. Seeing this, Zhanzai was distressed. Shaman's foundation was clearly injured, which could not be easily recuperated by ordinary elixirs. Shaman, although I don't know whether you are poisoned, injured, or possessed by the devil due to excessive practice, but you should be clear about what your physical condition means. You are not a reckless person like a Yi. You have always done things rationally, how could you make this kind of mistake? In this regard, Shaman just softly smiled. I'm sorry. I don't need you to be sorry. Zhan Zai found it difficult to keep his calm. If sorry can solve the problem, what's the point of our previous efforts? In this five spirits power struggle, the weakest is actually Eternal Tree. Not to mention Golden City and Flaming Valley, we are actually not even as good as Grey Mountain. Grey Mountain, at least, has Wang Lu. And that Lan has a strange skill. What about us? We have nothing. In order to make up for our weakness in strength, I have been planning all night, and you have also paid a lot of painstaking effort. Now, we are only a few steps away from success. Don't drop the ball at this time, okay? I'm sorry. In the face of Shaman's apologetic expression, Zhan Zai was filled with anger but had no way to vent it. He wanted to curse several times, but it was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. We have a chance to win. After a long silence, Zhan Zai reluctantly suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a sinking voice. I have told you this more than once. Although it seems that our strength is the weakest, in fact, our potential is the strongest. I know that you may not think so, and you also don't understand the significance of my special training for you during this period of time. As the sacred leaf of Eternal Tree, you inherit the pure wood element power. You are good at nourishing and growing, but not good at fighting. No matter how you cultivate, it is difficult to change this deep-rooted characteristic. Let alone let me help you, even if I invite the elders of my sect, it would still be difficult to train you into a qualified warrior in just a few days. Zhan Zai said with a somewhat bitter smile, but when have I ever lied to you? I said we have a chance to win, and that is absolutely not a lie. Shaman somewhat curiously tilted her head and softly asked, Oh? Zhan Zai said, Shaman, in your opinion, who is the strongest creature in this world? Shaman weakly replied, the master of Golden City is the supreme of this world. His strength is far beyond that of others. This matter, even women and children know, wrong, all of you are wrong. Zhan Zai shook his head in amusement. Even women and children know. How could the opinion of women and children be taken seriously? Perhaps the master of Golden City is indeed far more powerful than others, but to say that this world is the strongest. Shaman, you should be aware of this. Unfortunately, you are blinded by a single leaf, and you didn't find that the real treasure is buried next to you. Shaman revealed a doubtful look. Although she had regained her vitality under the effect of the elixir, she was still extremely weak, and her thinking had become very slow. Fortunately, Zhan Zai didn't really expect her to give the answer. He answered his own question, the strongest creature in this world is none other than the Eternal Tree. This tree of God has lived for tens of thousands of years. It can support the rise and fall of a world. One of its thick branches can support a city, and in its trunk, hundreds of millions of creatures have multiplied. Who in this world can be compared with such an existence? No matter how strong the master of Golden City is, could he be stronger than the Eternal Tree? Zhan Zai said, unfortunately, the Eternal Tree is detached from the world and does not have independent wisdom. Although its power is strong, it is not used by anyone. You are the noble sacred leaf, you can call the wind and summon the rain within the shade of the tree, but you can't borrow more power. Humph, what a big waste. You, the inhabitants of the Eternal Tree, regard this tree of God as a sacred object, worshipping it for generations without daring to blaspheme it, but don't tell me I can't see the value it contains? You are the sacred leaf, the ruler recognized by the Eternal Tree. As long as your method is slightly improved, coupled with a bit of ambition and boldness, you can completely control this tree of God. Control, the eternal tree. Even though Xiaofan was extremely weak at this time, she was still shocked by Zhang Zai's bold conjecture. How could the eternal tree be controlled by human power? This tree of God has lush branches and leaves that cover the sky, containing hundreds of millions of creatures. Even if I am the sacred leaf, if I put my primordial spirit into the heart of the tree, I would still be shocked by its enormity. It's simply impossible to control such a creature. Zhang Zai sighed. Of course, you alone can't do it, but there's still me. What I'm best at is calculation and the control of power. As long as you have my cooperation, the initial control of the eternal tree is not difficult. I have deduced it dozens of times, so it will never be wrong. As long as you can persist in practicing the method that I teach you, in the future, you will have a better fit with the eternal tree. By then, I am confident that I can make the eternal tree rise from the ground and transform it into a weapon of war that no one in this world can match. At that time, let alone Golden City, even junior brother Wang Lu would have to concede defeat. Therefore, Shaman, please cherish this short and precious peaceful time. While other people are desperately trying to tear open the space for you, you must cultivate my method with peace of mind, and then obtain the 5-blood spirit crown and become the supreme in this world. You can do whatever you want. Shaman listened in a daze, and only after a long time did she let out a sigh. Zai, you never told me about this. Zhang Zai proudly said, if you believe me, why would I say so much? If you don't believe me, why would I say so much? Having said that, deep in Zhang Zai's heart, he actually just wanted to give Shaman a surprise one day. He really wanted to see Shaman's surprised and admiring eyes when the eternal tree rose from the ground. Unfortunately, things turned out contrary to his wishes. Shaman gently shook her head. Unfortunately, I have no way to witness that miracle. While speaking, the woman's figure suddenly became somewhat transparent. My time is running out, so there are some words that I have to say. Shaman stood up and gently placed her hand on Zhang Zai's cheek. Thank you for taking care of me during this time. If I didn't know a Yi first, perhaps I would really fall in love with you. Unfortunately, while Zhang Zai was still in shock, the woman gently kissed him on the cheek. One last thing, please, help me take care of the 2 children, okay? Zhang Zai was full of astonishment. Before he could reply, Shaman's figure had already disappeared without a trace. As if she had never existed. Chapter 424. Brother Zai, my condolences, Eternal Tree, Sacred Leaf's residence. Wang Lu spoke earnestly. In front of him, Zhang Zai looked haggard, like a walking corpse. How should I say it? Although Shaman left you, at least she left the child to you. As Wang Lu spoke, he felt that it didn't sound like a consolation, but a sarcastic line. However, thinking of the actions of this group of idiots, it was not easy for him to hold back his laughter. However, considering the upcoming situation, Wang Lu still needed to borrow the strength of this loser, so he could only continue to do his best to comfort him. Moreover, you might as well look at it from another angle. Shaman, the Lord, is dead, but you, as a follower, are still alive. This is simply a miracle. Before Shaman left, she passed the position of the sacred leaf to her eldest son to maintain the existence of the sacred leaf. Considering that the new master of the eternal tree is still young, she appointed you as the regent and let you listen to the state affairs as a follower. At present, you are the actual controller of the eternal tree. The hundreds of millions of creatures in the eternal tree are under your control. The forest fairy clan that Shaman came from regards you as their absolute leader. The 3 great joys of life, promotion, getting rich, and death of a wife, once you get them, what more can you ask for? Seeing that Zhang Zai was indifferent to this sincere consolation, Wang Lu couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Sure enough, he was worthy to be the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, already immune to the topic of women. That idiot Zhou Mumu was worried that Zhang Zai would make the king of Harmony River cuckold. She didn't even look at who the other party was. This was the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect. Inheriting the glorious tradition of the 10,000 Arts, he was destined to live a lonely life. Even if he went to junior apprentice brother Hai Yunfan, he wouldn't be able to get a woman. What's more, how inexperienced did he have to be to not see the unbreakable deep bond between a Yi and shaman? The two of them might have different personalities, and they might have some intolerable flaws, but their deep love for each other that made them willing to sacrifice everything for each other was enough to offset everything. Would such a person cheat? That was as unrealistic as saying that Wang Wu had picked up the moral integrity she had abandoned for many years by the roadside. When Wang Lu first proposed to unite with Xiang Liang to cut off the Eternal Tree Alliance, it was not a complete joke. At the same time, he put the focus of the Four Forces Alliance on Xiang Liang because, in theory, there was no need to spend too much effort on him. What a pity. This group of fellows were more impatient than the other, not waiting for an explanation at all. Moreover, they were especially self-righteous, and their style of doing things was especially radical. They were like mad dogs in heat, completely uncontrollable. Of such chess players could only sigh in helplessness. Although it was a great, but the price, water Yi, and Mu, and God. Zhou, Mu, and the water, and Lu, and tree and God. The battle in Misty City had shocked the whole world. The King of Harmony River and Sacred Leaf Shaman broke the heavenly throne, and more than half of the 12 pure gold guards were lost. Golden City lost all its face. In fact, Wang Lu could guess the intention of a Yi. In addition to his muscle-filled brain that could not be suppressed, his remaining bit of wisdom made him think that this method could boost morale and make all sides unite against the common enemy. It had to be said that this simple wisdom was indeed practical in general, but the current situation was extremely complicated, and the result of wishful thinking often backfired. While constantly deducing the changes in the situation in his mind, Wang Lu said to Zhang Zai, "I heard that you have previously planned an amazing strategy of Eternal Tree stands tall on the earth. Once it succeeds, you can sweep this world and be invincible." Unfortunately, Sacred Leaf Shaman did not have the time to cooperate. "I'm very interested in that strategy." Zhang Zai swept his indifferent gaze at Wang Lu. "So what if you're interested? Shaman is no longer here." "Shaman is no longer here, but she left 2 children in your hands. Although the 2 children are young, they have inherited their parents' peerless aptitude. One is born with affinity to water and the other with affinity to wood. According to our standard, both of them are at the level of heavenly spirit root. And the eldest son inherited the position of sacred leaf and naturally fused with the eternal tree, so his aptitude is even better than his mother." Zhang Zai impatiently waved his hand to interrupt him. "So what? It's too late. With Shaman's deep foundation, it will take me at least 10 days to half a month to help her sort out her physique and improve her method. Let alone these 2 children. They simply can't afford this heavy responsibility." Wang Lu suddenly stopped talking and tilted his head to look at Zhang Zai. His scrutinizing gaze made Zhang Zai extremely uncomfortable. "What's wrong?" "I just think," Wang Lu lightly said, "right now, you're like a hungry idiot who is burning with lust, you don't even have the ability to think normally. You're the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, the sect's illustrious name has fallen into your hands." Zhang Zai sneered. "Did you come here just to provoke me with filthy words?" Wang Lu said, "No, I originally wanted to seek your support, but now Zhang Zai has been completely reduced to a waste. Your academic spirit has been completely submerged by the pleasure of men and women, not even worth mentioning. Damn it, you're taking advantage of me." Half of Zhang Zai's body turned into lightning as he reached out to grab Wang Lu's collar. Surprisingly, Wang Lu didn't resist with his non-phase sword, but just looked at him with a smile. Do you really want to fight with me? Zhang Zai gritted his teeth. I'm in a bad mood right now, don't King provoke me. Wang Lu laughed. It's rare for a disciple of 10,000 Art sect to say such a hooligan line. Zhang Zai, for the sake of our friendship, I will give you a reminder. The strategy of standing the eternal tree is not completely unfeasible. Even if shaman is not here, there is still a way to control it. And that way, I shouldn't have reminded you. Hearing this, Zhang Zai's brows tightened. There is still a way? To control the eternal tree, there must be a strong core to act as a bridge. Previously, he pinned his hope on shaman, but now, who else could take over shaman's position? After thinking about it, Zhang Zai still couldn't figure out the gist of it. Looking at the look of Wang Lu, he was particularly irritated. Don't keep me guessing, if you really have the sincerity to form an alliance, just say it. Wang Lu sneered, and then his smile faded. With a heavy face, he said, actually, the method is very simple. Isn't it enough to strengthen the current sacred leaf with the power of the blood mark? The power of the blood mark. While muttering to himself, Zhang Zai finally vaguely guessed Wang Lu's method. His pupils shrank sharply and his breathing stagnated. Yes, the blood sacrifice of the loved ones in exchange for powerful strength. And doesn't the current sacred leaf happen to have a top-notch sacrificial offering with excellent qualifications? His younger brother has inherited the bloodline of the King of Harmony River. If the blood is sacrificed, I'm afraid one blood mark is equivalent to more than 10 ordinary blood marks, which is enough to evolve the current sacred leaf into a usable realm. Although with such a crude strengthening, I'm afraid it would be wasted after using it once. But the eternal tree only needs to move once, and it would be enough to suppress all the strong enemies. Go to hell. Before Wang Lu could finish his words, Zhang Zai's power of thunder had already burst out, which blasted him upside down and heavily hit the tree wall. However, although Zhang Zai's attack was strong, Wang Lu quietly resolved it with his non-phase sword qi, leaving him unscathed. He reached out to smooth the folds of his clothes and lightly said, "Do you think I'm inhumane? Then I might as well tell you one thing. After you hear it, you can judge my humanity." With that, he pulled a wooden stool and sat down. His first sentence made Zhang Zai's whole body shake, and his anger gradually calmed down. Xiaofan has come out of the mountain. No matter what kind of analysis and judgment people made about the situation of the five spirits' power struggle, Xiaofan's Xinjing sect team was the most dazzling link. Zhang Zai firmly believed that the final opponent of this round would be Wang Lu, which fully affirmed his ability to take advantage of the situation and survival ability. However, the biggest enemy must be Xiaofan, because in this round, her strength had far surpassed that of her peers. It was just that, from the beginning of the fight to the present, Xiaofan had always been silent and firmly suppressed by the Master of Golden City. Only Jianglu and Wang Yue siblings, these second-line members, were sent out to contain her. However, second-line members were, after all, second-line members. Soon, they were divided and nibbled away by several forces. Xinjing sect team was weakened little by little, and today, there was almost only Xiaofan left. From a tactical point of view, Xiaofan's use of the team was undoubtedly a failure. Not only did she not play a role, she was sacrificed in vain, and even caused herself to be permanently imprisoned by the Master of Golden City. If they didn't know that this was the strongest person in Xinjing sect and even the entire 9 regions, this was simply a funny behavior. Therefore, although no one could guess her layout, everyone firmly believed that Xiaofan would make her move sooner or later. And when she made her move, the situation in this world would inevitably undergo major changes. Now, Xiaofan finally changed the situation in this world in a way that was beyond everyone's expectation. Senior Brother Zai, can you guess how Xiaofan came out of the mountain? Then, without waiting for Zhang Zai to answer, Wang Lu answered his own question, she killed the master of Golden City and usurped the power. Now, she is both the master and the blood spirit. The two of them are combined, and she is the strongest creature in this world. By the way, after Zhou Mumu left, the power of the blood spirit was recovered. Part of it went to the blood spirit temple, and the other part was deposited in the hands of Qianghua. Now, she has the power of 3 people, and no one can match her. Zhang Zai was shocked, speechless. Speaking of which, her goal from the beginning is the master of Golden City. And that Supreme King has a keen innate spiritual sense, so he was aware of Qianghua's natural killing intent. Therefore, as soon as Qianghua appeared, he immediately imprisoned her. He used the blood marks in his hand to create the Azura Hall. He is the most powerful person in this world, and his means are astonishing. Qianghua, with her king pill stage, could not escape. So, why don't you take a guess? Since the blood marks need to be sacrificed as a blood sacrifice, who did the master of Golden City sacrifice? Zhang Zai's thoughts turned sharply as he asked, pure gold guards? Yes, it seems like senior brother Zai has finally recovered his thinking ability. The so-called pure gold guards are actually the children of the master of Golden City. He sacrificed his 12 children and turned them into blood marks to seal Qianghua so that she can't move. This is because he doesn't have the confidence to kill Qianghua, otherwise, he could do it even more ruthlessly. He doesn't care about the 5 blood spirit crown because Golden City is the overlord of this world, and the other 4 forces don't really have the strength to threaten it. But Qianghua is a deadly threat in front of him. Wang Lu said and then shook his head. Unfortunately, the master of Golden City couldn't really be ruthless. Because the blood sacrifice was his own children, he made a slight adjustment in the ceremony so that the pure gold guards could freely transform between the blood mark and human form. After the crisis in this world, he recalled the 12 pure gold guards. Unfortunately, although this loophole showed his brilliant spell technique, it also buried the foreshadowing of his defeat. In the face of the provocation of the King of Harmony River, his dignity as a supreme king made him unable to sit still, so he boldly used the power of the pure gold guards. He took out the blood marks of the Azura Hall, and at the same time, he himself replaced the blood marks to personally suppress the Azura Hall. This was a cautious move, but it was exactly what Qianghua wanted. When the blood marks were taken away, the Azura Hall slightly relaxed, and she took advantage of the situation to break through and behead the master of Golden City when he was caught off guard. The whole process was clean and neat. It was as if the master of Golden City had delivered himself to the door. With that, a trace of admiration appeared on Wang Lu's face. So, senior brother Zai, do you understand what kind of opponent we are facing? From the very beginning, senior sister Qianghua has been constantly showing weakness, so that our 4 sides can promote the alliance, forcing the overlord of this world, Golden City, to find it difficult to breathe. When both sides are defeated, she will take advantage of the situation to pick the biggest fruit. She is indeed worthy to be the lead disciple of Xingjing sect. Her strength and calculation are so wonderful that it makes people speechless. And in the face of such an opponent, senior brother Zai, do you think we have any qualification to preserve our strength? Without waiting for Zhang Zai to think too much, Wang Lu threw out a new counterweight. Think about this problem clearly, senior brother Zai. Senior sister Qianghua, why did she lock her killing intent on the master of Golden City from the very beginning? No matter how wonderful her layout is, it can't explain this self-contradictory problem from the very beginning. What is the point of her taking great pains to kill a powerhouse who instinctively wants to be her ally? Wang Lu said, and his complexion became more and more serious. At present, there is only one answer that I can think of. While the rest of us are still targeting the 5 blood spirit crown, senior sister Qianghua has already set her sights on the whole world. What she wants is this world. Therefore, if you continue to be soft-hearted, those two children will eventually find it hard to escape death. Moreover, their death will be meaningless. The country that their parents risked their lives to protect will all fall into the hands of others. Senior brother Zai, although they are young, they have already inherited a noble identity, and along with that identity is the obligation to protect this country. I believe that even if they were here, they would not oppose my opinion. After all, they are that man's children, born heroes. As soon as Wang Lu's voice fell, outside the tree hole, two tender but decisive voices rang in unison. That's right. We are the sons of the King of Harmony River, we will never be cowards. Upon hearing these two voices, Wang Lu finally smiled with satisfaction. And in front of him, Zhan Zai could no longer be angry. Chapter 425. Half an hour later, outside the Eternal Tree, Wang Lu and Lan flew toward Flaming Valley on their flying swords. Are we just going to leave like this? When they left the Eternal Tree, Lan was very confused. Wang Lu funnily asked, "What else can I do if I don't go? Leave you to give him a child?" It was just a joke, but Lan seriously thought about it. After a long time, she asked, "Why should I give him a child?" Wang Lu continued to tease her, "In order to leave a descendant for your Grey Mountain. You can't just win the 5-blood spirit crown, but let your Grey Mountain be cut off." Lan said, "Why him?" "Because Zhan Zai's breed is excellent, and the key is that he can complement you. His only specialty is his high IQ, while your biggest defect is your low IQ. So that's how it is." Lan somewhat reluctantly accepted Wang Lu's statement. "So, do you want me to go back?" "Forget it." Wang Lu sighed, lamenting that it was indeed interesting to tease a smart person, but teasing a disabled person like Lan was not pleasurable at all. Thus, he kept his mouth shut. Leaving the Eternal Tree had its own reason. Zhan Zai and his Eternal Tree strategy was indeed a necessary part, but was it easy to persuade him to carry out the specific implementation? Shaman's final request for an orphan was a life and death test, which was almost impossible for Zhan Zai to cross. Because the most difficult thing for the nerds of 10,000 Arts sect to cross was the test of love. If they didn't get in heat, it was fine, but once in heat, it was often out of control. In the past, there was a senior of 10,000 Arts sect who, in order to win a beauty's smile, took her to the endless sea to see a kind of strange beast called golden phoenix fish. As a result, the strange beast launched an attack, and both of them died. The disciples of 10,000 Arts sect had always been indifferent to worldly things. However, when it came to love, their IQ would rapidly degenerate to the point that they were even inferior to Royal Soldier sect. And now, Zhan Zai was likely to be in heat without knowing it. Shaman was a member of the fairy race in the forest of the Eternal Tree. She was extremely beautiful, had a charming figure, and had a natural charm, which made her extremely attractive to the opposite sex. Coupled with her innate intelligence, Zhan Zai, after being with her for a long time, inevitably had his heart moved. Of course, with his self-control as the lead disciple, he would not do such a despicable act to ruin his marriage. Previously, he and Shaman had an ambiguous relationship unconsciously. If he noticed the change in his mentality, he would naturally know how to restrain himself. Unfortunately, Shaman was dead. Perhaps Zhan Zai would never find out that he had unknowingly fallen in love with a person, but the influence of love would remain. Because Xiang Liang came back just in time. This lead disciple of Royal Soldier sect was the only one who had the capital to face Zhonghua head-on. Previously, Wang Lu did not hesitate to painstakingly win the friendship of Xiang Liang for this irreplaceable and powerful force. And Xiang Liang indeed did not disappoint. After he returned to Flaming Valley, he directly found the king of Flaming Valley and forcefully seized the command of the Flaming Valley Guards. He then rushed to the battlefield and fought with Xionghua's Golden Jade Army for a whole day. After paying a heavy price, he finally succeeded in blocking Xionghua. The only pity was that the casualties were indeed too heavy. Senior brother Xiang Liang, you really have a whole new level of respect after 3 days. In the frontline barracks of Flaming Valley, Wang Lu couldn't bear to look straight at the wounded who was wrapped like a dumpling on the sickbed. Unexpectedly, only 3 days have passed, and I've only fought with Xionghua once, but the price is so heavy. The dumpling on the sickbed trembled a bit and issued a hoarse grunt. The sound was full of pain. Obviously, the severity of the injury had been difficult to suppress. Wang Lu was inwardly shocked. He was very clear about Xiang Liang's ability. In the ambush in the valley, more than 10 people from Xingjing sect besieged him, yet he was able to complete the 100-men beheading. From this, Xiang Liang's tyrannical strength could be clearly seen. However, under the hands of Xionghua, he unexpectedly ended up like this. At this time, the breath of the person lying on the sickbed was so weak that it was almost non-existent. He was really only half a step away from death. Where was the prestige of the lead disciple of Royal Soldier sect? Xionghua, oh Xionghua, did you, the veteran King Pill, specially come to slaughter the young? Looking at the painful Xiang Liang lying on the sickbed, Wang Lu sighed. Forget it, senior brother Xiang Liang, to be able to fight against King Pill Xionghua in Shudan stage is already not bad. Leave the rest to me. In any case, I'm also the initiator of the alliance, so I can't just shoot my mouth off, right? Otherwise, in the future, I probably can only marry a little Lolita as my wife, which is really not my aesthetic. Just as Wang Lu finished sighing with emotion and turned to leave the ward, a slightly weak voice suddenly sounded behind him. What do you mean by little Lolita? Looking back, Xiang Liang's pale face was right in front of him. After not seeing him for 3 days, Xiang Liang still had the old-fashioned look and sword-like eyes of the lead disciple of Royal Soldier sect. The only difference was that his breath was a lot weaker. However, looking at Xiang Liang's upright posture and his undiminished sharp eyes, anyone would know how stupid it was to underestimate him. Even if he was weak, the lead disciple of Royal Soldier sect still had a strong explosive power. At that time, Xionghua was forced to retreat by Xiang Liang, probably because of this. However, Wang Lu was more concerned about the issue at this time. I heard people say that this is your tent, then the one on the bed is. Xiang Liang glanced at the dumpling and then replied in a deep voice, the warrior who made the greatest contribution in the decisive battle. The medical conditions in Flaming Valley are limited, and my medicinal pills have been used up in the battle. All I can do is to provide him with a better environment as much as possible, but it seems that he won't be able to hold on for long. So that's how it is. It seems like I've watched too many melodramatic dramas recently, which really affects my IQ. Wang Lu smiled helplessly. However, Xiang Liang was still obsessed with the original question, what does little Lolita mean? Nothing, it's not a problem that needs to be concerned about right now. Senior brother Xiang Liang, how do you feel about your fight with senior sister Xionghua? Xiang Liang seriously said, invincible in this world. I relied on the general and soldier unity technique of Royal Soldier sect to gather the power of thousands of Flaming Valley guards to barely fight her. However, after the fight, more than half of the Flaming Valley guards were lost, and I was also seriously injured. It would be difficult for me to fight again in a short time. Is Xionghua injured? Only a minor injury. Although the magical power consumption is great, she is in the King Pill realm, so she should be able to recover in 1 or 2 days. Hearing this, Wang Lu couldn't help but curse. In his mind, he had to overturn the original plan and replan the countermeasures. During the silence, Xiang Liang suddenly asked, what is my aesthetics? Fuck, senior brother Xiang Liang, do you want to jump ship to 10,000 art sect? You're so curious that you want to ask about all the insignificant details. Xiang Liang said, really? Then I'll change the question, how are you going to fight with Qianghua? This question is a bit too sharp, let me think about it. Wang Lu said while thinking. But frankly speaking, he really didn't have a good way. In the original plan, Xiang Liang had to at least drag Qianghua for several times longer, so that he would have the confidence to come forward and deal with Qianghua until Zhan Zai finally broke the barrier of love and launched the eternal tree. But now, Xiang Liang no longer had the power to fight, and the whole plan chain was completely interrupted. And if he wanted to continue the next chain, it was easier said than done. While he was thinking hard, the ground suddenly trembled. Xiang Liang's complexion changed. He leaned over and put his ear to the ground. After a moment, he softly said, "Qianghua is here." Wang Lu could only wryly smile. Senior sister Qianghua was indeed formidable. In addition to her tyrannical strength that was above everyone else, her ability to lay out a plan was also above the standard. She simply calculated his side's weakness, and at the most inappropriate time, she launched a strong attack. Well. Xiang Liang stood up, looked at Wang Lu for a moment, and then nodded. The rest is up to you, junior brother Wang Lu. At this time, Wang Lu finally had an idea. With a smile on his face, he stepped out of Xiang Liang's tent. Rest assured, it's just a trivial Qianghua, I already have a way. With that, he clenched the mustard seed bag. Chapter 426. Outside the tent, Qianghua Fairy slowly approached. Although her pace was slow, every step she took caused the mountains to shake and the earth to shake. Moreover, her vigorous magic power spread out unscrupulously, like a thick dark cloud shrouding the sky above the camp, making it difficult for people to breathe. At this time, Qianghua was still far away from the army of Flaming Valley. She had not even really appeared, but her imposing manner alone had already frightened the barbarian soldiers of Flaming Valley. The fearless soldiers revealed fear in their eyes. Although the army had not been routed, their fighting spirit had completely collapsed. In this battle, Qianghua single-handedly forced Flaming Valley into a desperate situation without even a single soldier. Wang Lu had to sigh with emotion that the strength of this lead disciple of Xingjing's sect was really beyond the others in this world. Not to mention the difference between Jindan stage and Shudan stage was like a natural moat, even among the several lead disciples of Daoist master of Jindan stage, Qianghua was undoubtedly the strongest. In terms of actual combat, the previously insufferably arrogant Tiger King Lei Zhen on Grand Cloud Mountain might not necessarily be able to withstand 10 moves from the current low-level Jindan stage Qianghua. Even with his spirit beast, he could only barely fight to a draw. In a head-on fight with such a person, it was really difficult to talk about winning. No matter how fierce Wang Lu's non-phase sword was, he could not win against Qianghua with a gap of 1 level. Therefore, he did not intend to fight the other side head-on. After walking out of the tent, Wang Lu once again checked the hidden items in his mustard seed bag, and then operated his magical power several times to adjust his state to the best. After confirming that there was no mistake, his non-phase immortal heart suddenly turned, and his face immediately raised a bright smile like the sun. The change was so fast that several barbarian soldiers outside the tent, who were trembling under the pressure of Qianghua, could not help but rub their eyes, as if they had seen a ghost. However, a moment later, they suddenly felt warm in their heart, and the invisible pressure in the air gradually reduced. The feeling was like a spring breeze, and the source of the spring breeze was the bright smile of Wang Lu. If the distant Qianghua sect was like the coldness that enveloped the world in the deep winter, then at this time, Wang Lu was like a stove that was close at hand. He also walked slowly, facing Qianghua from a distance. When he walked out of the camp, the snow behind him had melted. It was not a deliberate attack, but just the aftermath of the non-phase Immortal Heart's full operation. Although he did not intend to confront Xianghua directly, Wang Lu was about to face this unprecedentedly strong enemy. Therefore, Wang Lu still showed all his skills. As soon as he revealed his skills, Xiang Liang in the tent turned his head in surprise. What a powerful formless immortal heart! His realm had far exceeded the Shudan realm, and with such accumulation, if it were anyone else, they would have already tried to break through the king pill. However, Wang Lu had been able to keep his composure. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful a Shudan was, in the end, a Shudan was still a Shudan. It was fine for her to challenge other Taoist Master King Pill, but as the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, how could Xionghua's accumulation before her breakthrough not be extremely deep? If he could not pass the King Pill, he would not have any chance. However, if he could advance from the Void Core to the King Pill, thinking of this, Xiang Liang suddenly felt a flash of light in his mind. Although he was inexperienced in the ways of the world, he was a rare genius in cultivation. He suddenly thought of a possibility, but he immediately shook his head and rejected it. Breakthrough at the last moment? This was the King Pill. Even if Wang Lu's accumulation was deep enough, coupled with his amazing spirit root qualification, there would be no bottleneck during the breakthrough, but after the breakthrough, he would have to spend a period of time to suppress the King Pill and stabilize his cultivation base. During this period, he would not be able to use his magical power freely, making it impossible for him to fight with others. If Wang Lu wanted to make a breakthrough at the last moment, he should have done it earlier, but now he had no chance. However, Wang Lu's way of doing things had always been unexpected. Let's take this opportunity to see what he was going to use to block Xianghua. While he was thinking, Wang Lu and Xianghua finally met. When the two of them met, Xianghua happened to reach the top of the mountain. She looked down disdainfully with a touch of curiosity in her eyes. Wang Lu stood at the foot of the mountain, looking up at her with a smile on his face. This was the first time they met in this immortal dreamland, but their imposing manner was vaguely comparable. Senior sister Xianghua, long time no see. Xianghua smiled. It's indeed been a long time. As the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, Xianghua was always calm and courteous. However, it was better to use peaceful means before resorting to force. Only when she made her move would people realize how sharp her methods were behind her polite smile. After a brief greeting, Wang Lu went straight to the point. Senior sister Xianghua, I want to make a deal with you. Xianghua nodded. I'd like to hear the details. In this 5-blood spirit crown battle, senior sister Xianghua's strength is far beyond that of her peers. Now, victory is already in your grasp. Even if the several of us join forces, it will still be difficult for us to contend against you. Hearing this, Xianghua was quite surprised. Whether it was the sect's intelligence or her understanding of Wang Lu, he was the kind of person who would never admit defeat. He would definitely fight to the end and seize the last chance to turn the tables. But now, he actually said such words? Probably, he was laying the groundwork for the real lines. Sure enough, as soon as Wang Lu finished speaking, he changed the topic. However, this is just a game, so what if I win? Xingjing sect is the #1 sect in 9 regions, so we don't lack this bit of merit to consolidate our prestige. However, this trial has a special meaning for me, so I want to make a deal with senior sister. With that, Wang Lu took out a golden seal from his mustard seed bag. Xianghua's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at the seal in Wang Lu's hand. Mysterious Sky's golden seal? Wang Lu said with a smile, yes, the Mysterious Sky's golden seal can be exchanged for more than 10 million spirit stones in the Mysterious Sky Mansion, which allows you to overdraft your spending and enjoy Mysterious Sky Mansion's high-class VIP treatment as well as various conveniences. Its authority is second only to the Mysterious Sky's Black Seal. At present, the mysterious sky mansion has distributed no more than 3,000 of them in 9 regions. As long as senior sister Xiaofan is willing to let me win this round, I am willing to offer this mysterious sky's golden seal. Xiaofan was even more surprised. Junior brother Wang Lu, you. After a pause, as if trying to find the right words, a moment later, Xiaofan softly asked, "Are you bribing them?" Wang Lu laughed. Senior sister Xiaofan doesn't know this, but this is not a bribe, but a political contribution. It's in accordance with the law, above board, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Xiaofan felt that she somewhat didn't understand. Oh, I know that senior sister Xiaofan, as the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, has never worried about resources. As long as your cultivation needs it, let alone the mysterious sky's golden seal, even more precious resources will be bestowed by the sect. However, in my opinion, what the sect bestowed is just dead money. Because no matter how precious it is, after all, it has to be put under the sun. From the application to the approval to the use, each and every move is known by the sect's budget constraints. I know that senior sister Xiaofan's conduct is above board and above board. However, everyone needs privacy, and on the path of cultivation, there will always be some expenses that are not known to everyone. This mysterious sky's golden seal is worth more than 10 million spirit stones, moreover, it's a living money. No matter how senior sister uses it, you can do whatever you want. Now that senior sister Xiaofan is a Taoist master of the King Pill, it's time for you to gradually break away from the shackles of the sect and start your own business. I think these 10 million spirit stones will certainly help you in your next step. More than just valuable. 10 million spirit stones, many of the elders of the 5 super sects may not even have such a net worth. The reason why Wang Lu could have such a huge sum of money was thanks to his several gambling windfalls, which he then wisely invested in the development of his sect. Over the years, the scale of the industry has grown by leaps and bounds, and the dividends have increased year by year. In terms of wealth alone, Wang Lu's family was far richer than many of the elders. Although Xiaofan was the lead disciple, she could freely dispose of her own money, which was no more than 1 million spirit stones. Looking at the golden seal in the hands of Wang Lu, Xiaofan, who had always been accustomed to controlling the overall situation and suppressing everything, finally felt that she could not grasp the situation. Wang Lu, what exactly did he want to do? Wang Lu struck while the iron was hot. Moreover, this matter is only known by you and me, there is absolutely no risk. Even if the sect later pursues you, senior sister, it would be easy for you to shirk it. After all, I have a small reputation in the Wuxia League, and I am accustomed to creating miraculous victories. It's not surprising that senior sister Xiaofan occasionally lost to me. In the past, 2 of the holy ones of the Western continent were lost in my hands. Oh, I know that a golden seal alone is not enough to show my sincerity, so I will add one more thing. If senior sister is willing to help me, I promise to owe you a favor, which will be valid forever. Seriously speaking, the value of my, Wang Lu's favor is higher than this mysterious sky's golden seal. Because now it seems to be just a promise from a peak Shudan stage cultivator, but in the future, when I reach Yuanying deity stage, the value of this favor is difficult to estimate. Enough. Xiaofan lightly interrupted. Enough, no need to say any more. Junior brother Wang Lu, I have seen your surprising ability, and the joke just now was indeed very funny, but I'm not here to listen to your jokes. Show me your real ability. Wang Lu sighed, played with the golden seal in his hand, and said, I am very serious, but senior sister, you only think that I am joking, it's really a pity. Do you really not want to think about it? Xiaofan helplessly shook her head, and then unsheathed her blue sword. If you say it again, it will only make me look down on you. Wang Lu was silent for a while, and then quietly put away the mysterious sky's golden seal. The smile on his face sank a little bit. Very well, Senior Sister Qianghua, since you don't want to accept my sincere deal, then we can only meet on the battlefield. But before that, I want to ask you one thing. Qianghua's patience was amazing. She didn't mind that Wang Lu talked too much. She nodded and said, "Please speak." Senior Sister, do you mind if I bully you with numbers? Qianghua smiled but didn't speak. She just pointed the blue immortal sword in her hand forward. Even if you have thousands of troops and horses, I alone with my sword is enough. Wang Lu smiled and said, "Very well, since Senior Sister is so bold, then I won't be polite. Let me introduce you to a friend. I met him when I was exploring the Western continent, and because of some reasons, he came with me to 9 regions." With that, Wang Lu took out a gray ball from his mustard seed bag, and then fiercely crushed it, causing a plume of gray smoke to rise. His name is Faceless One. Chapter 427. Almost as soon as the gray smoke rose, Qianghua made her move. The deep blue immortal sword, Immortal Dew, in her hand swung down with all her strength, merciless. The powerful primordial spirit made Fairy Qianghua immediately aware of the crisis. Although the faint gray smoke contained a weak energy, it carried a terrifying demonic power that was enough to move her. It was like an ancient devil that had broken free from its seal. Even though it was weak, it still had an overwhelming advantage in terms of cultivation. Qianghua was second to none among the lead disciples of the 5 uniques. However, the lead disciples of the 5 uniques were just disciples, and there were countless people who were more powerful than them in 9 regions. Therefore, Qianghua never overestimated her own ability. When she needed to go all out, she would never hold anything back. However, halfway through the swing of the Immortal Dew sword, Qianghua's eyes suddenly blurred, and the weight of the immortal sword in her hand suddenly changed. She felt that the sword was not real at all. Knowing that something was wrong, she immediately sealed her 5 senses, sank her primordial spirit, and the king pill in her jade mansion began to spin, and the light shone in all directions. That evil heart devil had unknowingly invaded her, and its speed was so fast that people simply couldn't react. Qianghua even suspected that Wang Lu's absurd bribery was just a cover for him to release his heart devil. Regarding Wang Lu's killing move, Qianghua did not dare to take it lightly. She immediately used Shengjing Immortal method to stabilize her primordial spirit and immortal heart, and then tried to expel it. However, just as Qianghua finished all this, a sharp laughter sounded in her jade mansion. The devil that invaded her jade mansion was crazily laughing in a special language. Qianghua's heart turned cold. That language was something that she had learned in Shengjing sect, the common language of the Western continent. And the lines of the devil were, "Ha ha ha, accept the sanction of Holy Light, Far East heresy. Western continent Holy Light religion lunatics." More than a year ago, she went on an expedition to the Western continent with the 9 regions Wanxian League and deeply experienced the fierceness of the local natives. The fanatics of Holy Light religion acted in a radical manner, and in the eyes of the people of 9 regions, they have long been possessed by the devil. However, these fanatics who shouted the sanction of heresy were the madmen among the madmen, the devil without a doubt. The situation suddenly became tricky. Shengjing sect immortal method was the supreme method in 9 regions. As the lead disciple of Shengjing sect, Qianghua was confident that she could come up with a method to restrain any devil in 9 regions. However, the devil of Western continent was not one of them. Whether the 9 regions evil suppression immortal method could restrain the devils of the Western continent, no one could say for sure. However, Qianghua's immortal heart remained unmoved. So what if she couldn't find a way to restrain it? As the lead disciple of Shengjing sect and the top sword cultivator among her peers, her one sword break 10,000 method ability had long been perfected. Not to mention that the immortal dew sword in her hand could purify all living things, and it was best at suppressing evil and exorcising devils. During her trip to the Western continent, she didn't deliberately start a massacre, but the number of Western continent devils that died in her hands was not small. Outside the Jade Mansion, the gray smoke gradually shrouded it and soon wrapped it up. The laughter of Faceless One was faintly discernible outside the Jade Mansion, just like a ghost. The gray smoke filled the air, turning Xionghua's brilliant Jade Mansion into the netherworld. However, Xionghua firmly guarded her Jade Mansion. The King Pill within the Jade Mansion generated its own magical power, which stood as an equal to the gray smoke. At this point, Xionghua was slightly relieved. Her reaction was a step faster. She promptly sank her primordial spirit from her purple mansion into the Jade Mansion, protected by the King Pill. If her primordial spirit was still suspended outside the Jade Mansion, everything would be over once it was confused by the gray smoke. However, seeing the layers of ghostly shadows outside the Jade Mansion, she was inwardly alarmed. The magical ability of this devil was really amazing. She, the dignified Taoist master of the King Pill, was actually easily trapped inside the Jade Mansion, making her unable to exert her magical power. Perhaps this devil was not an ordinary character in the Western continent. She didn't know how Wang Lu brought him back to 9 regions and brought him into the immortal dreamland as a trump card. In terms of rank, perhaps he was even above her. The only weakness was that he looked very weak. Although the gray smoke outside the Jade Mansion blotted out the sky and was endlessly mysterious, it was not very strong. As long as she condensed her magical power and broke through to a certain point, the gray smoke could be dispersed. However, as the magical power dissipated, the gray smoke came back. Upon seeing this, Xionghua immediately operated the King Pill, drawing the flying sword Immortal Dew back into her body. She saw that inside the Jade Mansion, the blue light on the sacrificial sword platform flashed. The Immortal Dew turned from real to virtual and flew into the Jade Mansion from outside Xionghua's body. Along with the appearance of the Immortal Dew, the gray smoke outside the Jade Mansion suddenly retreated about 10 feet, and the aura inside the Jade Mansion also became a lot clearer. This natural exorcism immortal sword was the nemesis of all devils, and now it seemed that the devil of the Western continent would not be an exception. Xionghua's heart became more at ease. Then, she used her primordial spirit to move the sword. The Immortal Dew sword slightly pointed outside the Jade Mansion, and the blue light on the tip of the sword condensed into a Jade Dew, which then flew out of the Jade Mansion and fell into the place shrouded in gray smoke. In a split second, a green plant broke through the ground, its branches extending upwards with all its might. Very quickly, it grew to a height of more than 100 feet. Dense branches and leaves grew, and then hundreds of flowers bloomed. Petals fluttered in the air, creating a scene of spring in the ghost domain that was shrouded in gray smoke. It was called Sword Immortal Dew, like a jade bottle held by a Zen monk in the dreamtime. A little bit of immortal dew could revive the dead. Although this flying sword was a sharp object, mainly for killing, in Xionghua's hand, it could reverse life and death. Although Faceless One's dead domain was strong, it could not stop the vitality of the immortal dew. Xionghua continued to use her primordial spirit to control the Immortal Dew sword. A little bit of sword light, like broken stars, lit up around the Jade Mansion. Each point of light was lush and flourishing. Before long, Xionghua's Jade Mansion was surrounded by a sea of life, and the gray smoke, which symbolized death, was forced to retreat step by step. Xionghua's confidence was blocked. Next, she had to be steady and sure, bit by bit, consolidate her own camp, until the gray smoke was completely removed and the victory was established. However, after the initial formation of the Sea of Flowers, Xionghua was surprised to find that the first batch of blooming flowers began to wither. When the Sea of Flowers multiplied to the extreme, death and withering became unstoppable. Although the gray smoke was temporarily excluded from the sea of flowers, it still penetrated into the sea of flowers all the time. And the miracle of life that Xianghua evoked with the immortal dew still lacked a lasting support. Xianghua was a bit hesitant. Do I have to use the king pill true qi? After entering the king pill realm, the king pill in the Jade Mansion was an inexhaustible source of power for the cultivator. However, after all, it was not inexhaustible in the true sense. Rashly using the true qi. And just at this time, a change occurred. In front of the Jade Mansion, where the gray smoke was the densest, a ray of light, like a sharp sword, pierced through the gray smoke and fell from the sky, shining on the flower tree that began to wither. With the illumination of the light, in a split second, the flower tree regained its vitality. The next moment, more rays of light pierced through the gray smoke and shone on the flower tree. Each beam of light made the flower tree completely rid of the shadow of death, glowing with unprecedented vitality. With the intensive light, the Jade Mansion seemed to be bathed in a sea of light. Witnessing this scene, Xianghua's heart could not help but be shocked. In a trance, her understanding of life and death deepened a level. In particular, the holy light shone on the immortal dew flower tree, making it full of vitality, not fearing any death and decay process, which contained a very profound mystery. And this was likely to be an important accumulation for Xianghua to step into the Yuanying stage. However, at the same time, Xianghua also calmly thought, what exactly was this light? Could it be that someone has come to help? However, in the immortal dreamland, there were enemies everywhere, so who would lend a helping hand to her? Or... At this time, from the boundless light above her head, a soul-stirring, primordial spirit-shaking voice buzzed. Believe in the holy light. Boom! Each of the tens of thousands of beams of light outside the Jade Mansion turned into a sharp sword and directly pierced the Jade Mansion. The originally impregnable defense, under the simultaneous attack of the tens of thousands of sharp swords, violently shook. What a powerful deception! In an instant, Xianghua's heart was shocked. This covert move was really used to the extreme. The gray smoke that previously blotted out the sky was just a cover, while the real killing intent was actually hidden in the moment of life and death. The real lethality of the tens of thousands of sharp swords was not reflected in the magical power. The sharp swords hurt the heart and the soul. The shaking of the Jade Mansion was not caused by external force, but the instability of her own primordial spirit, which began to tremble. Just now, because of her understanding of life and death, she subconsciously had a trace of recognition of the holy light that aroused the miracle of life. Thus, the opponent immediately took advantage of this and forced her to believe in the holy light. Perhaps this was the real killing move of holy light religion, which was really impossible to guard against. However, as the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, how could her yearning for the immortal path be so easily shaken? How could a mere holy light be compared with the faith of Xingjing sect? Xianghua's primordial spirit burst into a roar, and her immortal heart bloomed with supreme light, which was even more dazzling than the holy light that fell from the sky. At the same time, Xianghua no longer stubbornly defended herself. Her immortal dew sword and her primordial spirit fused, which then flew out of the Jade Mansion and courageously moved forward. The front was filled with gray smoke, but the immortal dew sword was invincible, piercing through the layers of gray smoke. Chapter 428. Ha ha ha, come and believe in the holy light, heretic lady of 9 regions. The laughter was like a spring thunder, which made Xianghua's tranquil state of mind tremble. The youth who suddenly lost his facial features melted like a burning candle. His flesh and blood melted into the earth. At the same time, the mountains around him began to twist and deform. Gray smoke surged from the horizon and soon enveloped her field of vision. In the place closest to her, a flowering tree rose from the ground and then seemed to wither under the grey smoke. Everything was exactly the same as what she saw in the Jade Mansion. Just now, her primordial spirit fusion flying sword seemed to have no effect at all, and she was still trapped in the cage of the Jade Mansion. In the cage, Faceless One's laughter once again sounded. It was still far and near like a ghost. However, the light that sprinkled down from the sky was even more magnificent. The flowering trees were attracted by the holy light, and each bunch of flowers turned their head to look at the holy light. The holy light nourishes all things, and all things believe in the holy light. This mysterious transformation between life and death constantly exudes a strange charm for cultivators. The more transcendental one's perception is, the more difficult it is to restrain oneself. However, as long as one's yearning for immortality is slightly shaken, one would be attracted by that light. What a powerful illusion technique! Xianghua inwardly marveled. Everything that she saw in front of her was trying to shake her immortal heart. And as long as her immortal heart was broken, she would immediately fall into the hands of the devil. Although this devil from the Western continent has been infinitely weak because of the long-term seal suppression, but before he was sealed, he was probably one of the most powerful cultivators in the Western continent. The use of power and the grasp of people's heart have reached the point of perfection. Although she was the top cultivator among her peers, in front of this Western continent devil, she was like a young child, whose every move was in the palm of his hand. This was a hopeless battle in which it was difficult to talk about winning. However, the more it was like this, the calmer Xianghua became. She took a deep breath and then operated her primordial spirit to seal off her 5 senses. The opponent's illusion technique was too strong. Under the effect of the illusion, she could not distinguish whether the world around her was real or fake. In this case, her 5 senses would only become a drag. However, as a cultivator of the King Pill sect, she had a perception that went beyond her 5 senses and would never be confused. His line of sight returned to his Jade Mansion. The diamond-like dazzling jade immortal heart was still stubbornly releasing its own light in the predicament wrapped in holy light, symbolizing Xianghua's unyielding persistence. That's not appropriate. I have not been trained by anyone, but rather awakened from the bottom of my heart, realizing my true mission. And for my mission, I can put down any so-called hatred, not to mention that I am the most loyal executor of Holy Light religion, so I have no personal hatred to speak of. Your so-called mission is to serve my master? Yes, my existence, my everything is to carry out her will. You are her disciple, so she handed me over to you so that I can help you at the critical time. So, at this moment, I will do my best to help you. I really want to know what my master did to you in the past. Wang Lu sincerely sighed with emotion. She showed me the truth. Oh? Is her truth a D-cup? Wang Lu, although I understand the intimate relationship between you and her, in front of me, you'd better not be disrespectful to her. Otherwise, I will let you have a deep taste of the price of blasphemy. Forget it. I have been her disciple for many years, and I have touched her more than once. I really hate you. But you still have to help me. I want you to quickly take down Xianghua. Otherwise, when she comes back to her senses and kills me, you, who are in the possession state, will also die, and your plan to be loyal to the queen will be over. I now think that it might be better for her to get rid of you and let her change her disciple. Well, now that Xianghua is impervious to evil, even a brilliant illusion would be difficult to shake her. Therefore, we must change the direction and give up the initial plan of humiliating her. Well, although it's a pity, the reality is more important. So, let's change to the next plan, delay the time, and strive to delay the other side. I agree. Although the Trinity is highly pure, its dullness to foreign objects can also bring fatal damage. Faceless Face borrowed Wang Lu's mouth to softly explain, and then she raised her right hand high. A river of holy light flowed out from the palm of her hand, like a gorgeous ribbon. It was just that, the heresy of the ribbon was extremely enlarged, turning into a billowing river. The river flowed upstream from the foot of the mountain, rushing all the way to the top of the mountain, wrapping the jasper flower on the summit. The river of holy light was mighty, rushing forward, but wherever the river passed, the movement of all things became extremely slow. This river was actually created by Faceless One with a very brilliant skill. He used the holy light to simulate the river of time, manipulating time in a small range. Qionghua's self-purification made her impervious to evil, but at the same time, she was also highly self-sealed. In this state, although it was difficult to hurt her, it could trap her in a special way. Well, with the washing of the river of history, she can't do anything for at least 3 days, but after 3 days, after 3 days, no matter what reaction the eternal tree has, it doesn't matter. Wang Lu sneered, frowned, and then said to himself, "Next, I have to solve my own problem. Faceless, come and give me a hand." In this mysterious and subtle realm, Qionghu didn't know how much time had passed. The high degree of integration of King Pill, primordial spirit, and immortal heart was an immortal-level method inherited by Xingjing's sect from before the age of chaos. For thousands of years, only a few people could cultivate it, and all of them were earth-shattering almighty. Today, the immortal path had declined, and Xingjing's sect was revered as the leader of the Wanxian League. In the sect, only Qionghu could use this method. In the state of integration, Qionghu was impervious to all methods. At the same time, because of the integration of the three forces, each and every move of hers had great power. Unfortunately, Qionghu hadn't been cultivating this method for long, so the three realms were not yet perfect. Therefore, she could only defend but not attack, and it was difficult for her to launch an attack. Otherwise, taking advantage of the disintegration of the illusion and triggering the counterattack from the opposite party, she would then launch a powerful sword strike in the state of integration. Even if Wang Lu's non-phase sword was twice as strong, he would still be defeated without a doubt. However, now that Qionghu had gradually regained the initiative, when the state of integration was over, she still had the absolute advantage. She had already touched the door of the opposite party's illusion, so she would not be confused for the second time. Without the illusion, what could a Shudan stage lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect and a Western continent devil who was struggling at death's door do? However, suddenly, Qionghua's immortal heart trembled, and the state of integration of the three nearly disintegrated. Her intuition told her that a huge crisis was about to come, and the sudden burst of warning even shook her immortal heart. What kind of crisis in this world could seriously threaten her? Even the devil of the Western continent just now couldn't do it, could it be? Impossible, it shouldn't be possible. Thinking to this, Qionghu simply began to lift the state of integration and began to unseal her 5 senses. When she opened her eyes, the blood-red setting sun surprised her. In her impression, the fight with the Western continent devil would last for at most an hour, and it was not even noon when the fight started, so how could it be in the evening now? However, before she could think about it, the terrifying magical power fluctuation from afar attracted all her attention. Behind the countless mountains, a big tree that blotted out the sky began to sway, causing the whole world to sway with it. Countless roots twisted together, forming a pair of strong and powerful legs that rose from the ground. Then it crashed down, and the waves of water in the lower reaches of Harmony River surged up to the sky. The violent shock seemed to turn the world upside down, and the shock waves were transmitted from thousands of miles away, making people unable to stand steadily. At the same time, rain fell from the sky, which was the water of Harmony River that was stirred up to the sky. When the eternal tree moved, it already had such power. However, why did this ancient silent tree suddenly move? At this time, 2 tender and angry voices suddenly resounded through the world along with the stretching of the branches and leaves of the eternal tree. Jin Ling, die. We want to avenge Uncle Zai." Upon hearing these words, Wang Lu finally could not help but laugh. "Senior brother Zai, I'm really sorry. The reason why I forced you with my words was not to force those two children to die, but to force you to die, and as a result, you really died, ha ha ha." Chapter 429. Wang Lu had never really conspired to take the lives of the two children. The blood sacrifice of one person to create the eternal tree was, from the very beginning, a conspiracy. A conspiracy to force Zhang Zai to his death. Zhang Zai's eternal tree strategy was not wrong. The spell he deduced with his supreme wisdom could indeed connect the sacred leaf to the eternal tree, which could exert an unprecedented terrifying power in this world. Unfortunately, Shaman and a Yi went to the underworld together, completely ruining his entire plan. Without the powerful sacred leaf shaman, the young successor was far from enough to support the spell. Thus, the only way seemed to be what Wang Lu said, the blood sacrifice of one person to create the other. However, just as Wang Lu said the plan, he was angrily interrupted by Zhang Zai. But on the other hand, if Wang Lu didn't say the plan at that time, what would happen? With Zhang Zai's IQ, could he really not think of this method? As for whether this method would be implemented or not, and whether it was possible for him to harden his heart and hurt the two children. In fact, he had to carefully consider it. The two children were entrusted to him by Shaman, which was of great significance. However, from another point of view, who did Shaman and these two children belong to? Was it with Zhang Zai? Seeing these two children who inherited the blood of a Yi, would Zhang Zai smile from ear to ear and regard them as his own? Even if Zhang Zai was slow in emotion, would he really be willing to accept these two big plates? Zhang Zai was not an evil person, but he was also not a saint. He would not easily be moved by the love between a man and a woman. Previously, when he was attracted by Lu Li, it could not be considered as being moved by his true love. However, with Zhang Zai's character, once he was moved by his true love, he would often do extreme things. For him, at the beginning, it was just a game, and the important thing was the result. During this period, when he got along with Shaman, this forest fairy made him quietly moved, and he began to try to enjoy the game process. However, when he had high hopes for Shaman, Shaman betrayed his trust. For Zhang Zai, Shaman could be said to have stabbed him in the back. However, for a cultivator of 10,000 arts sect who secretly had feelings for her, the meaning of this injury could only be explained by the countless painful lessons in history. Unfortunately, although Shaman was intelligent all her life, at the last moment of her life, she was confused and ignorant of what she had done. Entrust the two children to Zhang Zai. When Wang Lu found out about this, he immediately sentenced the two children to death. Perhaps Zhang Zai would not act immediately, but the existence of the two children was an eyesore. Zhang Zai would eventually understand that the five blood spirits crown was the only thing that mattered to him, and if he wanted to obtain the blood spirit crown, the sacrifice of the two children was essential. Of course, Zhang Zai was not a deranged person, but what if the two children sought death on their own, and their reasons for seeking death were very sufficient? Wang Lu was willing to bet 10 million spirit stones that Zhang Zai would definitely go with the flow and sacrifice the two children in exchange for the five blood spirits crown. This was the difference between Zhang Zai and Zhou Mumu. In order to have a tacit understanding with a Yi, in order to fulfill a poignant love, Zhou Mumu did not hesitate to sacrifice herself. However, Zhang Zai was different. The teachings of his sect and his innate temperament determined that he would never be stuck in a quagmire forever. If Shaman was still alive, she might be able to firmly tie Zhang Zai down, but she was already dead. The only factor that could limit Zhang Zai's madness had disappeared. For Wang Lu, the life and death of the two children were not important. He would not deliberately push them into the abyss, but he also would not waste precious time to save their lives. For Wang Lu, the important thing was Zhang Zai's eternal tree strategy. It was one of the most important weapons against Xiaofan, but at the same time, it was also a threat that made Wang Lu deeply apprehensive. Once the eternal tree fell into Zhang Zai's hands, he could really sweep across this world and no one could be his opponent. Therefore, Wang Lu had to get rid of Zhang Zai, and at the same time, he had to keep the eternal tree. Therefore, a targeted plan came into being. The plan to sacrifice the two children, Zhang Zai would eventually come up with it. However, if this matter was put forward by Wang Lu first, the nature of it would be completely different. Given the relationship between the two of them, Zhang Zai would only subconsciously resist this matter, and when he first heard about it, he would be furious. Next, Wang Lu talked about the plan that should have been deduced by Zhang Zai on his own. Not only was it not a hint, but it also completely strangled the germination in Zhang Zai's heart. Especially when the two children came at the right time to ask for a fight, Zhang Zai was completely suppressed by Wang Lu and could not even speak. However, going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Suppressing Zhang Zai so miserably would only make the seed of rebellion grow crazily. Similarly, the timely appearance of the two children was like a stroke of genius, which directly pulled them back from the abyss of death. After making such a scene in front of Wang Lu, no matter what, Zhang Zai would not just watch them die. On the contrary, if he could break Wang Lu's plan, Zhang Zai would regard it as a victory instead. However, how could he protect the two children and make Wang Lu's vicious plan fail? This was the problem left to Zhang Zai, and there was indeed another way to launch the eternal tree without the blood sacrifice. That was, Zhang Zai himself played the role of the sacred leaf. As for whether his wood spirit body could overstep its boundaries and play the role of the master. With the 10,000 methods comprehension, as long as he was willing to pay the price, there was nothing that could not be done. However, using the 10,000 methods comprehension to simulate the sacred leaf was, after all, a heaven-defying act. Especially when the target was the eternal tree, such a divine object. Zhang Zai was bound to pay a heavy price, and it was very likely that he would fall on the spot. In Swan Xian's dreamland, he still had life-saving props, but the fate of being expelled was inevitable. From a rational point of view, Zhang Zai simply could not accept this price. He was not here to do volunteer work. To launch the eternal tree to defeat Golden City and then let Wang Lu enjoy the fruits of his labor, why should he? Now the answer was revealed. Based on the previous words of Wang Lu, he was forced to die. Wang Lu didn't tell anyone about this trick, nor did he intend to share it with anyone. In fact, after Zhang Zai was misled by Wang Lu, until he used the 10,000 methods comprehension to simulate the existence of the sacred leaf to communicate with the eternal tree, his magical power was exhausted, his primordial spirit atrophied, and he was forcibly expelled from the immortal dreamland. He didn't realize that his wisdom was actually deceived and he had already gone astray. Of course, perhaps he had already realized it, but he didn't care. When he finally left the stage, Zhang Zai wore a triumphant smile. Wang Lu, in the end, I have not become a chess piece on your chessboard, nor have I lost my humanity. The most important thing is, I have gotten what I want in this trial, and the harvest will not lose to any of you. You can have the 5 blood spirits crown. I hope that your utilitarianism can bless you to always move forward. When Zhang Zai left the stage, perhaps no one in this world could understand the inside story, except for one person. Oh, what a beautiful trick. The smile on Wang Lu's face suddenly turned cold, but his tone was quite playful. It's very much like my style when I preached in holy light religion. Wang Lu clicked his tongue and said, originally, I was quite proud of something, but because of your comment, it immediately fell. Faceless One said, although I hate you, I recognize your ability. There are only 2 things in this world that are most important. One is hard power, and the other is the ability to play with people's hearts. It seems that you have mastered the latter ability. Wang Lu disapprovingly sneered. What kind of skill is there in playing with an otaku? When one day my master can find her moral integrity, that would be a great achievement. But in any case, the timely appearance of the eternal tree has finally solved the problem. Let's see how senior sister Xiaofan deals with it. This eternal tree has infinite energy. If it is properly controlled, it can be comparable to the holy ones of the Western continent. Unfortunately, no one in this world can have this cultivation base. Faceless One lightly commented, especially for two young children to control the eternal tree, I'm afraid it would be difficult to preserve its power. But it's more than enough to crush a king pill cultivator. I'm really looking forward to it. Senior sister Xiaofan, how are you going to break my game? The same question also emerged in the mind of Xiaofan. After awakening his five senses and opening his eyes, he saw a towering divine tree rising from the ground in the truest sense of the word. The hostility that assaulted his face was like a tidal wave, causing his heart to tremble. Such a divine thing had far exceeded the scope of this world. This ring limited the cultivation base of a cultivator to the king pill level. She relied on the secret method of Xingjing sect to quickly restore her king pill level after entering this world, which allowed her to occupy the absolute advantage. However, this eternal tree's level was far beyond Yuanying stage. If it was in perfect condition, let alone Xiaofan, even the elders of Xingjing sect might not be able to match it. Even if it was only the two children who controlled the eternal tree, it would be difficult for them to display even 1/10 of its power. Even if she had the ability to move mountains and fill the sea, how could she deal with the eternal tree, which was much bigger than any mountain or river in this world? So, how could she break this barrier? The Trinity's secret method was indeed powerful, but it was not enough for her to contend against the eternal tree. Moreover, the effectiveness of the secret method was limited and could not be maintained for a long time. In this state, although her power was raised to the peak and all kinds of evil could not invade her, the king pill also lost its endless good fortune ability, and there was a possibility that her magical power would dry up. If even this secret method could not work, then there was only the last choice. Xiaofan's temperament was decisive. After thinking about this, she made a decision. The girl took a deep breath and placed the immortal dew sword horizontally in front of her chest. Her right hand held the hilt while her left hand gently stroked the sword. At the same time, inside her jade mansion, on the sacrificial sword platform, a blue flying sword slowly floated up, echoing with the sword outside. Then, a clear spring flowed down from the sacrificial sword platform, and the source of the spring was a freehand landscape painting. This painting in the Jade Mansion originally seemed to be just an ornament, but at this time, from the mountains and rivers in the painting, a clear spring flowed out and washed the immortal dew sword. The immortal dew was pure and free of dirt, so why would it need to be washed? However, under the flow of the clear spring, the two words immortal dew on the sword were washed away little by little. Then, two swift and fierce handwriting emerged. Kill immortal. Chapter 430. When the two words, immortal dew, turned into, kill immortal, it was as if an invisible force was suddenly released. Between heaven and earth, the spiritual energy went berserk, and the wind and clouds changed. The whistling wind scuttled between the mountains, the rolling dark clouds gathered and dispersed from the horizon, and the thunder snakes rolled in the clouds. Xiaofan quietly wielded the kill immortal sword. Her heart was like an ancient well without any ripples, without sorrow or joy. The sword chi of the kill immortal sword wrapped around her body, making it impossible for any external force to invade her, let alone disturb her state of mind. Kill immortal sword was one of the most famous immortal swords in the 9 regions before the Age of Chaos. It was a veritable immortal treasure, and even the immortals of the upper realm could not face it head-on. It was just that, with the passage of time, the immortal chi of the kill immortal sword had long dissipated, leaving only a sword embryo, which was like a dried-up corpse, and its magical power was completely lost. Thousands of years ago, the Xingjing sect found this sword by chance, but they could not use it freely. Xianghua obtained the kill immortal sword from the hands of her sect elder, and she kept it close to her body, refining it day and night. Finally, when she broke through the king pill, she integrated the kill immortal sword into the sacrificial altar in her jade mansion, using her infinite potential to help it restore its vitality, turning it into the basic form of immortal dew. Although it was far from its peak, it was still a valuable spiritual treasure. At this time, Xianghua once again picked up the edge of the kill immortal sword. In her current stage, she could not freely use the power of the kill immortal sword. She could only release the sword momentum, which was a taboo of a sword cultivator. The sword should be light and agile, how could it be reduced to a rough chopping knife? However, at this moment, Xianghua really did not need any precise control. Because the target was too big, even if she wanted to miss, it would be very difficult, wouldn't it? With a chuckle, Xianghua lifted the last bit of restraint. The landscape painting in the Jade Mansion was once again attached to the wall, but the meaning of the landscape had disappeared. The blue flying sword was still on the sacrificial altar. It was just that, the sacrificial altar, which was originally enough to carry the flying sword, was now slightly shaking, unable to bear the burden. Because the immortal dew had finally turned into the kill immortal sword, the agile flying sword seemed to hide a whole world, a world of raging waves. This immortal slaughtering sword was her last trump card in this world. That's right, the target was so big that even if she could not control the kill immortal sword, so what? Because Xianghua's goal was the whole world. The kill immortal sword was an ancient immortal sword, and its killing power and magical ability were far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Even though it was separated from the heavy seals of Hichu Daoran, in the hands of Xianghua, it still shone with incredible power. Using the King Pill stage combined with the 3-in-1 secret method, she poured the authoritative divine power of the Master of Golden City, the power of Metal Spirit and Water Spirit into the Kill Immortal Sword as a sacrificial offering in the Temple of Massacre. And the ancient killing object summoned by the Kill Immortal Sword was enough to threaten this small world. Because this was, after all, not a complete world. It was just an immortal dreamland formed by the group of immortal tombs that connected the Feng Shui line of 9 regions. Although Xianghua could not break the world with one sword, she could break the dream with one sword. The red light gushed out from the crack and greedily spread to every corner of the world, setting off a monstrous killing. And each killing would make the red light more powerful, like the spread of a plague, unstoppable. If this was an independent and perfect world, facing this kind of crisis of extinction, there would naturally be a vision from the sky to resolve the crisis. For example, the heavenly tribulation in 9 regions was a means to balance the world. However, this immortal dreamland was still one step away from reality, so it was unable to quell the crisis. It could only let the red light spread and continue to disintegrate the world with killing. As for the eternal tree, at the moment when the red light lit up, when the whole world was placed under the kill immortal sword by Xianghua, the eternal tree was no longer in her eyes. At the same time, when the kill immortal sword disintegrated the world, the eternal tree did not do anything. Previously, it lifted its foot high, as if to flatten all the enemies that blocked its way. However, that foot never fell. It just hung there for a long time. No matter how the 2 angry children urged it, the eternal tree refused to move even half a step. Because the eternal tree had no time to take care of itself. In a small world where the most powerful being was only on the level of King Pill, a divine tree that was so powerful that it was close to a Supreme of Unity stage was itself extremely unreasonable. Behind this power, there must be a weakness. And Xianghua happened to understand this weakness. The eternal tree was the foundation of this world. Its strength came from the supply of the whole world. Thus, when the world encountered a crisis, it would also bear the brunt of the feedback. This strike to break the world happened to be a fatal blow for the eternal tree. Chapter 431. King Pill? Seeing Wang Lu, Xianghua looked very surprised. It was not surprising that Wang Lu could survive the kill immortal sword. Wang Lu's survivability was above any cultivator of the same level. However, even according to the most optimistic expectation, Wang Lu should have been seriously injured and on the verge of death after the kill immortal sword's world-breaking attack. But now, not only was he unscathed, he even advanced to the King Pill and stood on the same line as her. Was it possible to make a breakthrough in the middle of a battle? In theory, it was impossible. After the foundation stage, every breakthrough meant a huge change from the body to the primordial spirit, and it would take a long time to adapt to this change. Especially when it came to the King Pill, if one's qualification was slightly poor, they would have to adjust their breathing for several months in advance, and with the help of array pills, they would have to go through the deconstruction of the Jade Mansion, the condensation of the primordial spirit, and many other hurdles before they could finally achieve the King Pill. The process might take up to a month, and the shortest would be 4 or 5 days. During this period, there must be no external interference, otherwise, it would all be in vain. Not to mention reaching the foundation establishment stage before entering the immortal dreamland. Even if one was in the Jindan stage before entering the immortal dreamland, after being suppressed to the peak Shudan stage by the secret method, it would be extremely difficult to return to the Jindan stage. Otherwise, she would not be the only one in the King Pill realm in this round. In theory, it was impossible for Wang Lu to jump from the Shudan stage to the King Pill realm in a short period of time. However, theory was theory, Wang Lu never followed common sense. Before entering this round, Xianghua had expected that she might encounter such a situation. Therefore, she was fully prepared. In the face of the newly advanced King Pill realm Wang Lu, whose magical power was like a surging sea, Xianghua decisively made her own decision. I give up. Wang Lu was slightly surprised, but his smile did not diminish. However, he could not suppress his confusion. Senior sister Xianghua, are you teasing me? Xianghua calmly said, you and I are both in the lower grade King Pill realm. Our aptitudes are similar, and our cultivation techniques are equally good. Our strength should be about the same. Comparatively speaking, my magic weapon is stronger, but I can't use it now. After using the immortal slaying sword, my King Pill source is damaged, and it's difficult for my magic power to recover. I'm only at half of my peak. Whether it's a protracted battle or an instantaneous explosion, I'm no longer as good as you. If I continue to fight, I'll definitely lose, so I gave up. Xianghua also said, this world has already been extinguished by the kill immortal sword, but I can feel that the power of the 5 spirits still exists, and the blood spirit temple has not disappeared. Therefore, after I leave, you can still be the victor and obtain the 5 blood spirit crown. In this way, everyone will be happy, and you and I will not have to waste time in a meaningless fight. Even if you're the new King Pill and want to prove that you're above me, it doesn't make sense for you to win against me in my incomplete state. Therefore, it's better to leave the outcome for later. Judging from the situation in this trial, there are still many opportunities for us to meet in the future. I'm also looking forward to our next meeting. With that, Xianghua solemnly asked, Junior brother Wang Lu, what do you think? Wang Lu sighed. Senior sister Xianghua, I've always respected you, the lead disciple of Shengjing sect. Among the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, I always thought that only you can really compete with me. For a long time in the future, you will be my important opponent. Listening to Wang Lu's words, Xiaofan was somewhat surprised. However, Wang Lu immediately changed the topic. However, respect is mutual. Since you insist on treating me like a fool, I can only treat you in the same way. With that, Wang Lu's expression changed again, and his eyebrows suddenly became arrogant. Obediently cut off one of your arms, kneel down and apologize, then I'll let you go. Upon hearing this, Xiaofan was stunned. This, Wang Lu frowned. Don't you understand? This is a small vernacular language designed for people like you who don't like to use your brain. Listening to it, you should feel intimate, like it's your mother tongue. The sarcasm in his words was not concealed, and at the same time, a fierce murderous aura pierced forward like a sharp sword. Xiaofan sensed the murderous intent, and the king pill in her jade mansion suddenly trembled. She frowned and finally confirmed, "Junior brother Wang Lu, do you really want to have this kind of senseless fight with me?" Senseless fight? Ha, that's not what you said when you exterminated hundreds of millions of creatures with your sword. Xiaofan slightly understood. So this is what you're obsessed with. Junior brother, you don't know this, but this world is not as simple as you think, words are useless. Wang Lu roared, which caused the surrounding area to tremble. Xiaofan's complexion changed, because she found out that the place where she was located was unexpectedly sealed off. The space around her was suppressed by a powerful and heavy energy, like stagnant water, unable to move even the slightest bit. Non-phase sword defense? Wang Lu's 3-feet sword defense was well known for a long time. It could be called as an invincible barrier in the same stage. Even a powerhouse who was a stage higher than him might not be able to break it easily. However, when Wang Lu advanced to the King Pill realm, this non-phase sword defense impressively went a step further, reaching a more mysterious state. If it was a normal time, Xiaofan might be interested in exploring the mystery, but at this time, her heart sank. The space was suppressed by the non-phase sword chi, which rendered the prop she used to get out of this world ineffective. It was tantamount to her being trapped here. She had to fight with Wang Lu to determine the winner and loser, summon the 5 spirits into one, and then summon the 5 blood spirit crown. And right now, she really didn't want to face the imposing Wang Lu. However, the newly advanced King Pill was actually able to suppress the space within 100 feet with his sword chi. It was probably because the Kill Immortal sword had swept through this world, causing the space to become deathly still. She reaped what she sowed. However, at this point, it was useless to say more. Wang Lu had already made his move, and the sword intent was decisive. Xiaofan had no choice. 2 emerald green jade daggers jumped out from the sacrificial altar, and the sword body was projected in the palm of the girl's hand. The sword chi was dense and agile, it was a pair of rare treasured swords. Coming from Xingjing sect, Xiaofan's magical treasures were enough to overwhelm others. In addition to the most important Kill Immortal sword, she had as many spare weapons as she wanted. Each of them was not low in rank, and each of them had magical abilities. If one really thought that Xiaofan's strength would be greatly reduced after losing her main weapon, then that would be a big mistake. Xiaofan crossed the pair of swords in front of her chest and cautiously observed Wang Lu. The newly advanced King Pill was an earth-shaking change for any cultivator. Wang Lu was already powerful, but at this time, it was even more unfathomable. However, non-phase method had always been good at defense and bad at offense, so she didn't have to be in a hurry. Just as she thought of this, a golden light suddenly flashed in front of her. Wang Lu unexpectedly thrust his sword forward with an indomitable sword momentum. Feeling the sharp offensive of this sword, Xiaofan was startled. Could it be that the big heart demon oath that troubled Wang Lu had been lifted along with the achievement of the King Pill? Thus, she slightly raised the 2 swords in her hands, ready to parry. The next moment, the 3 swords collided. Xiaofan felt an incredible force coming from her hands. The two emerald-green jade daggers could no longer be held stably and flew out of her hands. Even her jade mansion and king pill fiercely trembled. Nameless sword? Xiaofan softly said to herself, and then looked at the sword of Mount Kun that was suspended in front of her. The girl smiled. Congratulations, you win. The duel between the two lead disciples was decided in just one round. Under Wang Lu's sword, Xiaofan, who was in poor condition, almost had no resistance. Are you satisfied? Xiaofan lightly said, the lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect defeated the lead disciple of Xingjing Sect. After this round is over, you can step on me to further your reputation. Is this what you want? Wang Lu sneered. Xiaofan then said, in short, can I go now? After a while, seeing that Wang Lu didn't have the intention to move the sword of Mount Kun away, and the space around her was still firmly locked, Xiaofan asked, or, are you going to kill me here? Wang Lu laughed again. Kill the lead disciple of Xingjing Sect? And then cause an uproar, and from then on, the 9 regions will no longer be peaceful? With that, Wang Lu put down the sword in his hand. Xiaofan nodded. Yes, that's why I said that this fight is actually meaningless. I have already admitted defeat. With that, Xiaofan was ready to leave, but she found that the space was still locked. Is there anything else? Of course there is. Wang Lu sneered. Originally, I was going to explain it to you in detail, but in view of your level of intelligence, I'd better change it to a more direct way. As soon as his voice fell, a strong and powerful punch solidly hit Xiaofan's face. This punch came so fast that it seemed to be even faster than the sword light. Xiaofan was caught off guard and was sent flying backward. Only after crashing into 2 mountain peaks did she stop. However, before she could stand up, she saw that Wang Lu was already standing in front of her. Boom! The second punch followed closely, sinking her deep into the mountain rocks and tens of meters deep into the ground. Xiaofan only felt that her face was hot, and then blood flowed out. However, the pain in her body was not worth mentioning. What really made her angry was the humiliation in her heart. Wang Lu, don't get me wrong, I'm not interested in humiliating you at the moment. In the deep pit, Wang Lu stepped on Xiaofan's feet so that she could not get up, and then lightly said, I hit you because of my respect for you in the past. You're a bit possessed now, so I have to wake you up a bit. Xiaofan sneered. Possessed? Are you still clinging to my kill immortal sword? I didn't know that the lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect has such a benevolent mind. It's just a mere immortal dreamland. Moreover, do you know what the background of this ring is? Wang Lu said, I didn't know at first, but now, even if senior brother Xiang Liang is slow, I'm afraid he can also see it. With that, Wang Lu raised his head and looked up along the hole that was created by his heavy punch. Outside the hole, the blood-colored sky seemed as if it could collapse at any time. Looking from the hole, it looked like an abyss. After the world-breaking blow of the Kill Immortal Sword, hundreds of millions of creatures in this world died. There were only a few survivors. Some of them were sheltered by Wang Lu's non-phase sword defense during the Great Apocalypse, and some of them were fish that escaped the net. However, no matter which creature it was, they all had very obvious characteristics. It was a characteristic that any cultivator of 9 regions with some experience would never forget. And these characteristics had never appeared before. The Great Apocalypse of the Kill Immortal Sword not only annihilated the life force, but also broke the huge confusion spell of this world, so that many things showed their original appearance. Before this, among the several lead disciples who entered this level, perhaps only Xiaofan had accidentally seen the truth. While thinking, Wang Lu sighed and revealed the answer, this is the demon world, right? Not to mention that you're not in a good state right now. Even if you're at your peak, if you're unguarded and stung, you can only lie on the ground and be at the mercy of others. Xionghua's heart was anxious and shocked. As the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, she traveled all year round to gain experiential learning, so how could she not guard against poison? Her body was planted with Qiongyu branch, which could purify all kinds of poison. In addition, she also cultivated several body protection methods, so no matter how powerful the poison was, it was impossible for it to penetrate into her body without being noticed, unless she reluctantly operated her primordial spirit to look inside her body, and sure enough, she saw that the Qiongyu branch had been broken. That's right, those punches just now were not only to humiliate her, but also to target the Qiongyu branch. The poison in his fists was used to attract the Qiongyu branch, and then he used the nameless sword to counterattack. Wang Lu's targeting was too strong. The existence of the Qiongyu branch was Xionghua's life-saving card. Even in Xingjing sect, only a few people knew about it, so what about him? That's right, previously, she and Faceless One had a fierce battle. Perhaps it was at that time that she exposed a lot of her cards. However, after these thoughts crossed her mind, Xionghua suddenly realized a more serious problem: red face, heavy armor, poisonous tail. This image, she had vaguely seen it somewhere before. Thinking to this, Xionghua couldn't even care about the shame and anger in her heart. She wanted to speak, but the poison spread, making her mouth and tongue numb. She wanted to use her primordial spirit to transmit her voice, but she found out that Wang Lu had used his non-phase sword qi to set up a defense outside his body, isolating all external forces from invading. But at this time, he was still so cautious. Just as Xionghua gradually became anxious, Wang Lu suddenly opened his mouth. "Senior Sister Xionghua, based on my understanding of you, you're actually not a cruel and bloodthirsty person. Whether it's in public, you need to consider the sect's prestige, or in private, as far as I know, you're a fairly generous lead disciple. However, in this world, you killed hundreds of millions of creatures without batting an eyelid, just because this is an immortal dreamland?" Wang Lu said with a faint smile. "That shouldn't be the case, right? Look, apart from you, every single one of the 5 chief disciples has invested their true feelings into this world. Because even if everything here is a dream, everything you do and every single action you take is something that really happened. You've killed hundreds of millions of creatures with your sword, aren't you afraid of being haunted by heart demons?" Xionghua sneered in her heart, but the next moment, Wang Lu suddenly approached her and slowly said, "Of course you're not afraid." Fairy Xionghua has always done things in an open and above-board manner. Even though this sword has committed a monstrous sin, your heart is magnanimous, and any heart demons can't entangle you. Because, what you've killed are the creatures of the demon world, the irreconcilable enemies of human beings. The more you kill, the more clear your mind is. Xionghua closed her eyes and didn't speak. There were some things that she really disdained to explain. Wang Lu said, "Moreover, you don't want to leave this matter to others. You discovered the truth by chance the moment you entered this ring, but you didn't even tell your junior brothers and sisters by your side, and you didn't even contact the other 4 chief disciples. You only planned to bear everything by yourself, because you believed that only you could bear this heavy burden. You're the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, and Xingjing sect is the leader of the Wanxian League. Right now, you're the fully deserving number 1 person among your peers. Even if it's me, under fair conditions, my odds of winning are only 30 to 40%. And after a few decades, you will become one of the youngest supremes in 9 regions. At the same time, you're more likely to take over the position of Supreme He too and become the leader of this world. In addition to supreme glory, this also means that it's difficult to shirk responsibility. Xingjing sect is often accused of being overbearing, but in the Great War of Immortals and Demons, Xingjing sect has contributed the most. This is the way of the king, right? Upon hearing this, Qionghua's heart gradually calmed down, but at the same time, she was even more puzzled. She didn't expect other people to understand these things. After all, everyone's position was different, so their horizons were different. But Wang Lu, since he could understand all of this, why would he? Thinking to this, suddenly, a gust of wind blew in front of her, and Wang Lu's heavy punch once again fell. This punch was exceptionally painful. Senior Sister Qianghua, the affirmation in your eyes just now has strengthened my determination to wake you up. Wang Lu said, if you're the kind of person who only cares about benefits and abandons all benevolence, righteousness, and morality, I would be too lazy to care about you. But now... Bam! Another punch. Qianghua felt that her eyes were somewhat unable to open, but even if she could open them, she really couldn't see through Wang Lu's next step. Perhaps your understanding of the so-called way of the king is not wrong. Even the most generous king will become cruel to the enemy. But your sword strike that broke the world with ease reminds me of another kind of person. Wang Lu said, they tie a large number of explosive talismans on their bodies, and fearlessly rush into the enemy's crowd to detonate them, causing heavy casualties. They face death calmly, and at the same time, they don't care who died under the explosive talismans. Newlywed wife? A toddler learning to speak? Old people past their prime? It doesn't matter. They are the enemy, they deserve to die. In order to kill them, I can pay any price. See, what's the difference between that and what you did? Qianghua just sneered. Her mind was firm, how could it be shaken by words? Wang Lu also said, moreover, Senior Sister Qianghua, have you ever thought about what this immortal dreamland wants us to do? The one who built the entire group of immortal tombs is Dixian of 9 regions, but the background of this ring is set in the demon world. Moreover, everyone around them seems to be flesh and blood. Zhan Zai, that idiot, even fell in love with the forest fairy, or the demon forest demon. It can be seen that letting us deepen the contact and exchange with these demons is the deliberate intention of the designer. But, what's the meaning of this design? I don't know what you're thinking, Senior Sister, but the way I see it, the designer clearly wants to tell us that even if they're absolutely irreconcilable enemies, they're still living beings of flesh and blood, and we share the same feelings. When Wang Lu said this, he suddenly felt that Qianghua under his feet fiercely trembled. Her tongue was paralyzed by poison, and her angry voice intermittently sounded, so, you can even ignore the distinction between immortal and demon and call them brothers? Brothers? Wang Lu smiled and shook his head, and then punched Qianghua in the face, making her completely shut up. Do they deserve it? Chapter 433. Withdrawing his fist, Wang Lu wiped the blood on the back of his hand on the rock wall, and then said, I actually don't have any feelings for the devil race. Whether they are flesh and blood or heartless, I don't really care, because after the end of the great war of immortals and devils, there is basically no chance to see them, and those little demons and devils are not up to us to deal with. TSK, don't look at me like that. It makes me look indifferent and ignorant. I'm not the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, so I don't have to take the initiative to bear the heavy responsibility of the rise and fall of the immortal cultivation world. Wang Lu said with a rather sarcastic smile, as if the heavy responsibility of the rise and fall of the immortal cultivation world was an extremely ridiculous thing to him. But you are different. You are the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, and the future leader of the Wanxian League. Anyone can do whatever they want, but you can't. Your every move has far-reaching implications, and at the same time, you have to be the role model of the Wanxian League. But now, your attitude of genocide is a matter of course, and it is easy to lead the Wanxian League into an extremely dangerous situation. Wang Lu said, and then released a sharp sword qi from his fingertips, which carved a character on the rock wall. Next to the seal, he also carved a portrait of Xionghua's head. Wang Lu's painting skill was quite profound. In just 2 or 3 strokes, the girl on the rock wall was quite charming. However, after the painting was completed, Wang Lu deliberately drew a pinch of rendan between Xionghua's nose and lips, and then shook his head and whispered, "Racists are all dregs." Xionghua was full of confusion, but she saw that Wang Lu had no intention of answering. Sure enough, Wang Lu quickly removed the painting on the rock wall, and then said, "Senior sister Xionghua, although you usually look approachable, deep in your heart, you are noble, cold, and stubborn. Even if I break the sky, I can't change your 3 views. So, I chose a more direct way, to slap your face. But I have always been a reasonable person. If I didn't say anything and directly slap your face, it would seem that I am a villain, taking advantage of people's difficulties. That's why I talk as I fight. That way, I can fight openly and confidently." No matter how Xionghua thought about it, she didn't think that it was honorable to take advantage of her condition to be ruthless, but she did remember Wang Lu's previous words. As Wang Lu said, Xionghua's mind was very firm, and could not be shaken by just a few words. She admitted that what Wang Lu said was very reasonable, but that was only Wang Lu's reasoning. The next time she saw the demon race, she would not hesitate to use the kill immortal sword. But besides her stubbornness, she also remembered that in addition to her own reasoning, there was another reasoning in the world. "I know that even if I beat you beyond recognition, you will still do what you want. So, I didn't beat you to change you, but to make you remember one thing." Wang Lu said and punched Xionghua's nose, "What you want to do is your own business, but as long as you dare to mess around, I will slap your face just like today. You are indeed better than me in a one-on-one fight, but since I started my journey, I have dealt with too many powerful enemies that are more powerful than me, so I don't need you." Xionghua did not speak. Now that she was trapped in someone else's hands, any more words would only bring humiliation to herself. The path of immortal cultivation was long, and the King Pill realm was actually just the starting point. As for the future, let's just wait and see. However, just as Xionghua was ready to endure all the humiliation, Wang Lu walked away from Xionghua and sat on the rock wall next to her. At the same time, Faceless also withdrew the needle on his tail. However, at this time, Xionghua was completely paralyzed and could not move at all. "The first lesson is over, let's start the second lesson." Wang Lu said, "This lesson is relatively easy. Let me tell you about my strategy." Xionghua remained silent. "Actually, when it comes to strategy alone, I have nothing to say. Because even if I did, it would be meaningless to you. I worked hard to lay out the plan and control the other 3 lead disciples. The 3 forces formed an alliance to try to contend against you, but in the end, you broke everything with a single sword. Everyone's style is different, so there is nothing to seek common ground while reserving differences." When it came to Xionghua's world-breaking sword, Wang Lu still looked resentful. Although he had finally stabilized the situation at this time, it was not easy to let go of the fact that Xionghua had turned the tables. "However, there is one thing I can teach you, and that is to try to figure out the designer's thinking. From a simple framework alone, you did a good job, but the general direction is wrong. No matter how much you do, it will still be the opposite of what you did." Wang Lu said and pointed his finger to the sky, "It's the same old question. What do you think the designer's meaning is in setting this ring in the demon realm? If that group of Dixian just wanted to leave a legacy for us, there is no need to deliberately add the background of the demon realm. But to say that they want us to have a deeper understanding of the demon race. What is the meaning? There is no reason for the Dixian to be partial to the demon race. The great war of immortals and demons started a long time ago. Xionghua still closed her eyes and said nothing, but it could be seen that her heart had been faintly shaken. In this ring, her opening was different from everyone else. Because she had understood the truth early, she had never been as sincere as Zhang Zai and the others. She had always looked at this ring from a detached point of view, so there were many things that she did not care about. At this time, listening to Wang Lu's words, it was really a bit strange. Regarding this problem, I have an immature opinion. Wang Lu said, for the demon race, we have always had a rule, fighting against the demon race is greater than the heavens. Even if there is a great hatred between us, we must temporarily put it down, right? Then, if we apply this logic, although we currently have a great hatred with the demon race, under special circumstances, shouldn't we also put down the hatred first? Upon hearing this, Qianghua suddenly opened her eyes. Her mind was greatly shaken, and she looked at Wang Lu in disbelief. What he said was right, this was indeed a possibility. Moreover, in connection with the existence of this group of immortal tombs, it seemed to confirm Wang Lu's statement more and more. You mean? What I mean is there an existence that is more powerful than the demon race that requires the unity of the ancient earth immortals and the demon race to be able to contend against it, and then pass this on in the form of the group of immortal tombs? Wang Lu said, but then shook his head. Of course, my guess is just this. An enemy that can make us put down the distinction between immortal and demon race. Forgive me for my poor imagination, but I really can't think of it. Xianghua suppressed the shock in her heart and thought, you really can't think of it? Or do you think of it, but you don't want to say it out loud? Moreover, senior sister Xianghua, don't you think there's another detail here that's worth paying attention to? Xianghua blinked her eyes, signaling him to ask. At this time, the bruises on her face that were violently beaten by Wang Lu had gradually healed, but her blinking action still looked a bit funny. While enjoying the beautiful scenery with great interest, Wang Lu quietly recorded it with the recording jade talisman and explained, don't you think the background setting of this ring is too detailed? The customs of the demon race shown in the immortal dreamland have reached the level of detail. There are many details that I can't find in any ancient book. For example, the forest fairies of Eternal Tree, or the demon forest charming spirit race, they were already on the verge of extinction during the Great War of Immortal and Demon. Their cultural inheritance was completely severed, and they existed as a vassal of other powerful demon race. However, in this ring, I was fortunate to see the unique civilization of this race. It is indeed pleasing to the eye, but at the same time, it also makes people curious. How could the civilization that even the demon race could not restore in the past reappear in this ring? At this point, the answer was already obvious. It was just that the answer was too shocking for everyone, so no one said it out loud. The silence lasted for a while. A moment later, Qianghua stood up, and the injuries caused by Wang Lu just now had completely recovered. Today's matter, Qianghua will remember it. In the future, I will certainly pay you back. Qianghua said and cupped her hands towards Wang Lu. There was no resentment between her eyebrows, but there was a faint trace of admiration in her eyes. Obviously, what she would return in the future was not hatred. Her voice fell, and Xianghua's figure gradually faded away. At the same time, from her body, the power of 4 different colored blood spirits gushed out and poured into Wang Lu's body. The next moment, the power of the 5 spirits merged into one, and a blood-red crown slowly condensed from the void and appeared in the hands of Wang Lu. Was this the thing that the 5 chief disciples were fighting for? Wang Lu played with the crown in his hand for a while. It indeed contained a powerful and mysterious power. As the proof of the overlord of this world, as long as he wore it, he would be able to rule the world. However, after the sea of blood created by the Kill Immortal Sword, this world was almost destroyed. What was the point of being the king of the wasteland? Moreover, was it so easy to be the king of the demon world? Anyway, the most important thing in this ring was already in his hands. It was time to get out of here. Here, this thing is for you. Wang Lu said and threw the 5 blood spirits crown on Lan's head. At this time, the girl had a blank look on her face. She had just been freed from the state of being possessed by Faceless. Wang Lu did not intend to say too much to her. From the beginning to the end, Lan maintained the low profile that a servant should have. She followed Wang Lu here and there, busying herself like a handyman. But Wang Lu knew very well that this little girl was not as simple as she looked. There were too many secrets hidden in her body, but there was no time to explore them one by one. After handing over the 5 blood spirits crown to Lan, Wang Lu patted her on the shoulder. Next, work hard to rebuild your home, young girl. With that, the world in front of them was torn apart, turning into countless fragments. This long battle for the 5 blood spirits crown had finally come to an end. The immortal dreamland was broken. The next step should be to return to the entrance, which was a bright place with a river of stars. However, this time it was different. After the world was broken, what came into sight was a grey fog. In the fog, a vague and hollow laughter came faintly. Since the background of this level has been cracked to this point, why are you in such a hurry to leave? While speaking, the fog dissipated, and a purple-black fire appeared in front of Wang Lu. Wang Lu shrugged helplessly. Hero, I have something important to do now. Why don't you leave your contact information, and I will come to you when I have time. Something important to do? Do you mean this? While speaking, from the countless pores on Wang Lu's body, a thick black fog gushed out and gathered around the purple fire. However, like a moth flying into a flame, it disappeared as soon as it came into contact with the flame. I've helped you get rid of your heart demon. Now, can you seriously talk to me? However, after defeating Xiaofan and winning the 5 blood spirit crown, the heart demon was, after all, a fatal threat. Faceless One was not omnipotent, and the time to suppress the heart demon was limited. Therefore, Wang Lu planned to return to the sect with the spirit sword heavenly talisman. Although the heart demon seemed to be unsolvable, since this move was passed down by his master, he believed that she must have the antidote. If there was really no antidote, then before he died, he would use the name of Wisdom sect to borrow a huge sum of money from the mysterious Sky Mansion, and then make a will. All of my debts will be inherited by my master. But now, he didn't have to worry about whether his master could save him or not, because the person who could save him was right in front of him. It was just that, if he could choose, he would rather take the risk and return to the sect with the heavenly talisman to ask for help. Because the purple-black flame in front of him seemed more terrible than the heart demon. Moreover, he roughly knew what the other party wanted to say, which was not a pleasant topic to hear. The heart demon has been eliminated, can we have a chat? Wang Lu sighed. Mr. might not know, but my heart demon and I have developed feelings for each other for a long time. Now, our feelings are deep, and I can't bear to separate. I hope Mr. can return my heart demon to me, and then let us go. That purple-black flame stagnated for a long time, and then the flame continued to flutter. That muffled voice said, "You have developed feelings for your heart demon for a long time?" Wang Lu confidently nodded and said, "Mister, have you ever heard of a popular story in 9 regions, My Girlfriend is a Zombie, which tells a touching and tragic story of love between a human and a zombie? Since humans and zombies can get together, what's so inconceivable about my heart demon and I developing feelings for each other for a long time? The inconceivable thing is that the heart demon is ruthless. Even if you are the #1 love sage in 9 regions, and you can even get together with flowers and plants, you can't infect the heart demon." Wang Lu said, "Everything has an exception. There are thousands of heart demons, and this one in my family is especially obedient and cute, there are hundreds of millions of heart demons in the world, which one of them is not familiar to me? Do you want to compete with me in understanding the heart demon? That purple-black flame suddenly let out a burst of sneer, and then, with a loud bang, the flame exploded, revealing its true appearance. Its body was more than 30 feet long, covered with bone spurs, red face and fangs, and its eyes were like torches. It was an out-and-out demon? Such a strange shape, such a monstrous demonic flame, such a clear understanding of the heart demon, and even casually released it. The heart demon that had already been deeply rooted in Wang Lu's body was easily dispelled by the opposite party. Who else could it be besides the demon of the demon world? Seeing this demon, Wang Lu inwardly sighed. The various speculations in the immortal dreamland were indeed true, but it was really not enough to make people excited. It's as you guessed. The strong devil man nodded. I am the creator of this immortal dreamland, and also one of your so-called ancient earth immortals. What the hell? After gawking for a moment, Wang Lu shook his head and wryly smiled. This group of immortal tombs, which was regarded as one of the 10 miracles in 9 regions in the past 1,000 years, unexpectedly had the participation of the demon race. Moreover, it could even be ranked as one of the Dixian. This was even more outrageous than his 7th uncle, who was a slave of Kunlun immortal sect, becoming an elder of Spirit Sword sect. It was as inconceivable as a capitalist joining the party. If the outside world knew about this, who knows how big of a mess it would cause. At least, there would be a big turmoil in the excavation management. Not to mention Xianghua, who was an extreme racist who regarded the difference between immortal and demon as more important than her virginity. If she knew that a demon could become a Dixian, perhaps she would directly go to the heavenly realm and appeal to the higher authorities. However, for Wang Lu, it was not that difficult for him to accept it. In the previous ring, he repeatedly reverse-deduced the designer's idea and gradually had a guess. Now that his guess had been confirmed, it was not that surprising. Since the topic had been opened, Wang Lu no longer shirked and bluntly said, "So, what advice does Senior Dixian have for me?" "Advice?" The devil sneered. "You really do need someone to give you some advice. Let me ask you, do you remember what someone reminded you before the opening of this group of immortal tombs?" Wang Lu frowned, and the memory in his mind quickly returned to a year ago. At that time, the leaders of the 5 super sects joined forces to open the gate, and then, someone from the gate said something, explained the background of the group of immortal tombs, and then gave him a reminder. The group of immortal tombs is the legacy left by the ancestors. If you want to take away the treasures inside, you have to inherit the will of the ancestors, which is a necessary responsibility. Now that the group of immortal tombs had been open for more than a year, although the overall progress was not fast, no one knew how many cultivators have benefited from it. Moreover, Wang Lu, this rare talent, caused the time to backtrack. However, he never heard anyone say that they shouldered any responsibility. Regarding this issue, the excavation management once had a discussion. However, due to the lack of clues, the final conclusion could only be, the wish of the Dixian was that everyone in the world could ascend to immortality. Therefore, we, the later generation of cultivators, must inherit the will, carry forward the spirit of not afraid of hardship and tiredness, continuously strengthen the construction of immortal cultivation civilization, and push the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions to a new level. At that time, Wang Lu also didn't have a mature idea. However, after seeing everything in the immortal dreamland, he vaguely guessed what the so-called responsibility was. That. Wang Lu hesitated to open his mouth. However, before he could finish, the demon interrupted him. The world is very big, much bigger than what you ignorant later generation cultivators think. These words were said without rhyme or reason, but how fast was Wang Lu's mind? He immediately reacted and said, "You mean there are many worlds?" In addition to the 9 regions, the Western continent, and the demon world, which we are familiar with, are there other worlds? The demon froze for a moment and then nodded slightly. Yes, you're not that unbearable, your mind is quite open-minded. As a human being, Wang Lu really didn't feel that there was anything to be proud of in receiving the praise of the demon race, especially in this matter. I just happened to see more than the average person. I once caught a glimpse of the boundless world. In short, in places that we don't understand, there are some unusually powerful hostile creatures, such as the ancient beasts, the 12 ancestors of witches, the iron and steel core, the 3-body people, and so on, which may endanger the safety of everyone. Therefore, the immortals and demons did not hesitate to join hands to fight against the enemy. However, the great undertaking of fighting against the enemy has not been completed, so they created a group of immortal tombs for the future generations to inherit. There were still many things that didn't make sense in this speculation. For example, if they really encountered a crisis that could lead to the extinction of the world, why was the 9 regions completely ignorant about it for so many years? The Dixian were even willing to accept the demon race, so why didn't they leave any news on the continent? Was it worth keeping it a secret, or was there something else? Moreover, in the face of such a big crisis, it seemed that some people should help. However, the most important thing now was that he had learned a lot of secrets. Could it be that he had to shoulder the responsibility of maintaining the survival of the 2 worlds and contend against the opponents that the Dixian couldn't do anything to? Wasn't this progress a bit too fast? Well, he was a professional adventurer, so it was common for him to challenge and open maps across levels. However, without waiting for Wang Lu to think too much, the demon race said, "The things that you think about are still far away from you. There are many secrets that can't be revealed so quickly. And you guys, especially you, your pace of exploration is a bit too fast." Wang Lu frowned as he listened. The demon race explained, "This group of immortal tombs is a place of experiential learning and also a place of inheritance. There are many kinds of immortal dreamlands, some of which are quite special. You will see some incredible scenes." Backtracking in time? The demon race chuckled. You can think of it as backtracking in time, but every time you successfully stimulate a vision, it means that you are one step closer to the real inheritance. And now, are you really ready for the inheritance? Wang Lu sighed. Of course not. This kind of big thing related to world peace should be handed over to senior sister Qianghua. As for me, it's enough as long as my wife and children heat up the Kong bed. That's why I said, "Please return my demon heart sauce to me." Hearing Wang Lu's words, the demon race also laughed. He waved his pair of stone-like thick arms and threw a blood-colored gem. "Your demon heart sauce." Wang Lu took the gem and felt that it was scalding hot, which made it difficult for him to control. He quickly put it into the special jade box and then settled down. After sending out the gem, the demon race was once again wrapped in the purple-gray flame, and the gray fog became thicker and thicker. Wang Lu knew that this was probably the signal to leave, so he turned around and left. Soon, the stars shone brightly as he returned to the entrance of the group of immortal tombs. Behind him, in the thick fog, the voice of the demon race was already inaudible. "Next, do your best. Later generation cultivator, this is all I can do for you." With that, the fireball collapsed with a bang, and along with it, the astonishing appearance of the body also collapsed. The knotted crimson muscles fell off along with the bone spurs, and the 3 Zhangtal giant collapsed just like that. What remained in the original place was a slim and beautiful figure. The woman was tall and fit, and behind her, there was a nimble tail gently swaying. And in the woman's hand, there was a broken and old crown that she was playing with. Chapter 435. It really feels like a lifetime has passed. When leaving the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu let out a heartfelt sigh. However, as soon as his voice fell, his expression suddenly became cold and stiff. He continued to say, "From your sigh, I seem to hear a lot of meanings. Do you want to emphasize the backtracking of time in the group of immortal tombs?" Then, Wang Lu shook his head. "I just want to say that my Jindan stage is gone just like that. Just a moment ago, I was still a Daoist master of Jindan stage who could fiercely push Qianghua to the ground, but the next moment, I was beaten back to my original form, reduced to a Shidan waste. If you want the king pill, I can help you. As long as you are willing to believe in the holy light, with my help, let alone a mere king pill, even Yuanying stage is just around the corner." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu immediately became curious. "You, this Western continent heart devil, are actually proficient in our 9 regions immortal path to this point that you even have a way to quickly reach Yuanying stage?" Faceless One explained, "The laws of the Eastern and Western continents are different, but there are also many similarities. The so-called Yuanying stage is nothing more than a rebirth from the dead, turning the spiritless king pill into a spiritless Yuanying stage. Our holy light religion is also good at this. The earliest holy woman of the church was blessed by the sea of holy light, which condensed the holy fetus in her abdomen and gave birth to the holy son with a pure body. And as a quasi-saint of the church, it's not difficult for me to help you do the same." After Faceless One finished his words, even though Wang Lu's spirit was firm, he still didn't speak for a quarter of an hour. "Forget it." Finally, Wang Lu unceremoniously made a decision. "Not to mention that your method of achieving the holy fetus is very different from the main path of Yuanying stage in 9 regions. If I really choose to do so, it would be tantamount to handing over my weakness to a fool, so that she can laugh at me for being pregnant from time to time. Ridiculous stubbornness. You 9 regions people have always advocated giving up everything in order to achieve the supreme immortal path, but you, for a matter of face, cut the shortcut. On this point, the gap between you and your master is really too big." Wang Lu sneered disapprovingly. It was only natural that there was a huge gap between them. In the vast 9 regions, who dared to compete with Wang Wu in moral integrity? Then hurry up and get her pregnant if you have the ability. She has been cultivating for more than 100 years, and she has already ground out 2 king pills, but she still hasn't reached the nascent soul stage. Why don't you think of a way to get her pregnant with twins? If she can stay in confinement for a few years without going out, it would be a great benefit to the entire 9 regions. Along the way, Wang Lu and Faceless One began to study and discuss the issue of Yuanying stage. On the other hand, Wang Lu returned to Spirit Sword Mountain through the array of Fengdu City. Bon voyage. This time, he had broken through 3 trials in a row, and his harvest was even greater than he had expected. Helping the sect clear all the prerequisites for the 36 chains was secondary. The secret he had obtained from the last chain, the 5 blood spirits crown, was the truly important harvest. In comparison, the 3 days he had bitterly resisted the immortal slaughtering sword sea of blood, and his cultivation base had skyrocketed, were not worth mentioning. When he returned to Spirit Sword Mountain, he saw that on the 4 divisions peak, several elders had already been waiting there in advance. After landing and inquiring about it, he found out that the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown had been widely spread in the 9 regions. The main reason was that 3 days ago, the lead disciple of Kunlun sect, Zhou Mumu, visited the 10,000 Arts sect and challenged Zhan Zai, who had just returned to the sect. The battle for the lead disciple of the 5 uniques was not a trivial matter, especially the matter of the battle, which was by no means a personal matter. Zhou Mumu rashly visited the sect and challenged the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, which, if careless, would cause a dispute between the 2 super sections. However, Zhan Zai tacitly agreed to it. Moreover, he tried his best to appease his fellow sect members and then had a fierce fight with Zhou Mumu in the dojo of the 10,000 Arts sect. The result of the battle was a tie, but the process made the onlookers' eyeballs pop out of their sockets. As everyone knew, the lead disciple of Kunlun sect, Zhou Mumu, was not good at fighting. It was just that, at her current stage of immortal cultivation, her ability to fight in a head-on fight was perhaps the last among the 5 uniques. Although Zhang Zai was also not known for being good at fighting, he could firmly suppress Zhou Mumu. However, in this fight, Zhou Mumu's first move was an eye-opener. She abandoned her usual primal chaos diamond ring and reached out her hand to summon a blood-colored spear. The spear's momentum was great, sweeping away thousands of enemies with an indomitable momentum. Although Zhou Mumu was just at the early stage of the low-rank King Pill and her stage has not yet stabilized, as soon as this blood-colored spear came out, some of the elite disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect who were at the peak of the King Pill stage paid their attention to it. Using their unique Heart Sutra for a long time, they found out that they might not be able to take it. This kind of strength was even better than Zhang Zai before he entered the group of immortal tombs. However, Zhang Zai was not in a hurry. He reached out his hand to the sky and a bolt of lightning fell to the ground. Well, this is Master's new loyal dog. Come and meet me. These are my several martial uncles. Let me introduce myself first. With that, Wang Lu's complexion suddenly became stiff, and then Faceless One introduced himself. Hello everyone, I am Faceless, the bearer of the holy light, the guide of the path of truth. Come and believe in the holy light with me. Before he could finish, he was forcibly interrupted by Wang Lu. Get rid of this disgusting advertisement. Faceless One's voice suddenly turned cold. Oh, are you guys those useless fellow disciples who only know how to drag Wang Wu down? I've heard her talk about you before, and now I see that you really live up to your reputation. I advise you to obediently hand over the position of sect leader, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite to you guys. Before his voice fell, he heard the flustered and exasperated voice of a woman from the non-phase peak. How dare you King trick me? After the small disturbance caused by Faceless One's honesty was over, Wang Wu, whose 1 year's stipend was deducted, took away Faceless One, while Wang Lu stayed behind to finish the unfinished story. It was about the cooperation between the demon race and the Dixian, the doubts about the backtracking of time, and the conjecture about the unknown enemy. In this regard, the several elders obviously knew more about the inside story. After listening to Wang Lu, they looked at each other and exchanged a lot of information without the need of primordial spirit transmission. Unfortunately, Wang Lu did not establish such a deep tacit understanding with the several elders. He could only see the expressions of affection from the several elders, but he didn't know what exactly it was. When he wanted to ask, he saw sect leader Feng Yin waving his hand. Don't ask about this matter, it's not the time for you to care about it. That demon race is right now, you are not qualified to receive the inheritance of the Dixian. For the time being, you don't need to participate in the exploration of the group of immortal tombs. We, the several old guys, will take over. During this period of time, you should recuperate from your injury and take down the King Pill first. The sect leader was indeed the sect leader, he could see the key point at a glance. What Wang Lu needed the most right now was not to continue to explore the group of immortal tombs, but to take down the King Pill. On the road of immortal cultivation, if one did not advance, one would fall back. However, the opposite could also be true. The situation forced the cultivator to move forward bravely. For example, right now, after Wang Lu used the power of the demon heart to create the fake King Pill, although the demon heart had been taken away by the demon race, it was not to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. The source of the demon heart was Wang Lu himself. From the moment he decided to temporarily use the demon heart to create the King Pill, the demon heart would never be at peace. Although the demon heart had been cut off, with the passage of time, the demon heart would regenerate like dandruff. The demon heart that restrained him from hurting people with a mortal method was irrelevant. He had already adapted to it after many years of cultivation. However, the one that created the fake king pill was particularly dangerous. There was only one way to eradicate it. By cultivating the real king pill and using the real king pill to cover the fake king pill, the demon heart would not be able to exert its power. Therefore, for Wang Lu, achieving the king pill was a natural need. However, achieving the king pill was easier said than done. Especially when the threat of the demon heart was hanging over his head. Let alone Wang Lu, this king pill had accumulated so much that it was rare in the world that he had to face a bottleneck problem with his void spirit root. If he wanted to achieve the king pill in a short period of time, he had to resort to trickery. Thinking of this, Wang Lu could not help but think of Faceless One. Perhaps, when it was time to borrow his power, he should not hesitate. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.